Hello and welcome to episode 61 of the Imperial Truth, our annual Weekender episode. But before we get into any of that, should we talk sponsors?
Let's do it.
This week will have come out by the time you are listening, all the new Stormcast stuff for Age of Sigmar. I'm not going to apologise for talking about it because I think it's awesome. And there's some really cool, weird, crazy stuff going on in that. So you can get all that if you're listening to it. As soon as it comes out, you can get all that with the extra 5% off at Element Games. And I need to order some airbrush paints because I've got an event coming up and I need to paint some knights as quick as possible.
Yes, airbrushes for the win, I'd say.
Yeah, getting a lot of that done. So, yeah, Element Games. And, of course, as usual, if you go through theimperialtruth.com, then you support the show. And many thanks for those who do that.
Great, and I will take Lil Legend Studios. We obviously spoke to Miles in depth at the Weekender, and he's doing some great work still. He's got lots in the pipeline. He's doing all sorts of bits and pieces. And I believe he's getting married very, very soon as well.
Yeah, not long now.
Definitely give him a shout if you need anything painted. If you want to learn anything, we did have a long discussion about teaching and trying to do online teaching for people and courses and all this sort of stuff. And he is the go-to man if you need something painted or you want to learn how to paint. I've even discussed with him that hopefully we'll be able to do some sort of link up with maybe I'll be able to help maybe do a bit of the painting, like painting teaching for certain bits and pieces. So hopefully we'll be able to link up on that and get something in the calendar.
Groovy. That's those two guys out of the way. All done and dusted. Push them to the side. So, Neil, don't talk about what happened at the Weekender because we don't want to spoil anything for those people who don't know yet, although most should do. But what have you been up to?
Well, at the moment, I'm up to nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'm taking a nice, well-earned break from any hobby. Although, I was saying to you earlier, it's a bit weird because it's been so frantic over the last couple of months that I've had to sort of switch off, and I've got like this hobby itch, and I'm used to doing 4 or 5 hours a night painting or whatever, and I'm just at a loose end, and it's a bit unnerving.
Excellent stuff. Cool. Well, yeah, so you'll soon be up to your neck in it again, I would have thought.
Yes, indeed.
So it won't be a major issue. I've got an Age of Sigmar one-day event next weekend, so I'm actually putting my Age of Sigmar stuff away for a little bit because kind of everything's pretty much done for that, for what I need. I realised that the Durham event that I'm going to is a month away, less than a month away, and it's 3,500 points. Or there's sidebars you can have up to that. And I was like, oh, my Mechanicum, have I got enough painted for that? No. Joe has just finished building the Porphyrion, though, even though he did get the leg struts wrong. If anyone's building a Porphyrion, be careful. Leg struts have specific places because they have 1, 2, or 3 bars on which the leg armour plates attach. So I've got to figure out some way of cutting and shifting that to make them fit. But yeah, I was like, well, I could paint that in a month, maybe.
Yeah, you should be able to, shouldn't you?
I'm very slow. So although I might be able to put some hours in, those hours don't necessarily turn out as much as most people.
Right.
But I have literally, I got it home tonight because I was staying at work last night, and it's now silver all over. Maybe got a bit overzealous with the spray cans and the bits and pieces, but
it's chrome Porphyrion.
Well, the idea is I'm probably going to go with the clear paints again.
Right, okay.
I'm thinking of clear blue on the plates.
Right, okay.
And then I was thinking gold, but actually I was thinking with the amount of plates on there, it might even look better as silver. So,
okay, yeah.
So I'm hoping that clear, metallic blue and silver are going to go well together.
What happens if it doesn't?
Then I'll have to paint the silvers a different colour. And that's going to be a fair amount of work. So Who knows?
What sort of points level does that take you up to? With your Mechanicum?
That is 495 base. So for my army, it will be just over 500 points. The problem I've got with my Mechanicum is I was buying the models I liked. So at the moment, I've got 3 heavy support choices. I've just bought a 4th. And it's like, okay. So I have to make a choice between one of them. You know, I've got hardly any fast attack. I've got another Castellax to build up. I can do quite a few thousand points, but I've got 2 knights. It's almost like if I painted the 3rd knight, I could just take them as allies, which would be better because Leviathan's banned up there and Onslaught is the other one, but Onslaught you automatically give away the first turn, I think. Which
right.
is,
a bit of a pain.
I'm not taking a hard enough army to do that. Like, I want to take 2 knights just because it's the easiest way for me to get the points up. Because the Styrics is good, but it's nothing like spectacular compared to some of the Lords of War you can buy. So, I don't want to take Onslaught. So, I did just buy a few more Grav Myrmidons though, and they're not cheap, so I can expand that unit up a bit. There's a few things I can do. And I've got my, finally got the 3 Castellax painted. I've got to say another one with a Darkfire cannon waiting to be painted, and I've promised it's things like I've got another train. I've got another Trios conveyor, but actually,
yes, you had 2 of those, didn't you?
Yeah, I'd have to make it, and it's not actually that many points anyway. I mean, it is good. Don't get me wrong. So it will be made at some point. But I've also got another Thanatar which I could paint up, so I could take 2 Thanatars in the unit, which would be quite useful.
So basically, you've got hobby choices to either build or paint, and you've got to try and get it to a certain points level.
Yeah, I mean, I can get it to 3,500 with a Porphyrion pretty easily. I think. Realised in playing around my list against Joe at the club that I was playing around with it, and I was like, yeah, I'll do this. I won't take the 2 knights because I basically just took my 3,000 point list and added the Porphyrion, and then I was like, I won't take the 2nd knight because I'm not going to be using it, and then ended up not putting the extra units down on the board. So I played like 400 odd points down in the game, which was, hey ho, it happens. I only just lost it as well, which was quite interesting against Joe's Solar Auxilia. It's a bit of an interesting matchup at times. There's some really problem with Mechanicum can be like he couldn't deal with the Castellax very well, but my units that were really looking to do some heavy damage, like the Myrmidons, actually go down quite quickly. So there's a weird kind of thing going on across the board, and trying out the Porphyrion, trying to work out whether it's worth advancing it up the table or sitting and trying to keep everything in its front arc, because it's got some meaty weapons on it.
Yes, I'm trying to remember the rules for that, but I do seem to recall they were pretty effective. Yeah,
I think in the original rules, the 2 cannons were melter, and they're not anymore, which is good. They might not have been melter, but I've got a feeling they were. But they're 5-inch, 5-inch templates at strength 10, AP 2 per gun.
Yes, yeah.
So that's not bad, and ordnance, it's not barrage, it is ordnance. And then I'm going to have 2 las cannons in the shoulder joints as well. And then I'm going to go with the anti-aircraft rocket launcher because it's a strength 8 interceptor, and the interceptor's only on that weapon. So, if someone does, like Joe actually killed it with the final hull points were taken off with a lightning. But had I kept it back, he wouldn't have been able to bring the lightning on and shot me without me intercepting him.
Yes.
So, which is a tricky one for him to decide what to do, whether he risks it or not. So, yeah, there's loads. I mean, it's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's really cool. It's got 8 hull points. It's a tough old mongrel. But we'll see how well I play it. The problem is he plays the Solar Auxilia that hide behind the Aegis defence line, so they're shrouded in the first turn as well. So 2 or 3 are flipping cover saves depending on what's firing at them. All fun. The only advantage is because the Knight Porphyrion's so big, you actually take, when you're working out cover on units, you actually take the point of view of the model. So it was so big, actually, it was looking over the Aegis defence line.
That's useful.
So I was reducing some of his saves, but it's interesting. And to be honest, I don't mind. I'm going to go up there. I'm going to throw all my models on the table and have a blast. But I bought 6 Grav Myrmidons that Joe converted. I bought the Trioros off him as well. He's thrown in a Space Wolf guy he made up for some reason. So I've got plenty to be getting on with, plus all the Age of Sigmar stuff I've got going on. Plus we're starting to get into the Heralds of Ruin, which I don't know if I spoke about on the show. It's a kill team. It's a modified kill team play set, and it also, the guys who've written it have also written 30k rules, or the 30k armies into it, which is quite cool. But it's very much going to be a hobby project for me, and an Age of Sigmar 28 as well. So I will go into that, actually, because, I mean, I'm going to try and talk about the Heralds of Ruin once we played it and had a look at it a little bit, as like an alternative way to play the Heresy. Edit that out.
Sounds interesting, that event.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff to do. So, and I've been looking at, there's a Facebook page called the Inquisitorium, which is all about Inquisitor 28. So if you saw in White Dwarf a couple of months ago, they had the guys getting together to play Inquisitor 28 with John Blanche, all very inspired by his little art style and the small gangs. That is essentially playing Inquisitor, the old Games Workshop game, the semi-role-play miniatures game, but at 28mm scale. And Inquisitorium is like the Facebook, they call it the beating heart of Inquisitor 28. But they also kind of carry the rules for Inquisimunda, which is taking the Necromunda rule set and using it for Inquisitors, things like that. The Heralds of Ruin, Kill Team, and all that. It's everywhere with those things and combined. And the idea is you don't use stock models. You just go mad with your models.
Go mad and create something really unique.
And John Blanche is on there as well. I didn't realise this until I got back, that it was actually him, because I was being a bit slow. Maybe just didn't want to believe it. But he posts up stuff, and other people are posting up stuff all the time, and it's so much talent in that group. It's really inspiring, actually. And it's made me think, I want to do a little kill team separate from what I'm doing, but actually detailed and things like that. In a way, because I know I won't do it with my armies, so it gives me an outlet for it. Some people do it with their characters, say. That's something that some people do. They pick out characters and champions. But also I want to do it for Age of Sigmar as well. I've got a bit of a buzz going on. So I think at work, when I've got time at work, I'm going to be working on conversions on models and things like that.
Yeah, I do love a good conversion, actually. I mean, I think it's one thing I always look at online, and if I see someone that's done a really good kit bash or a really good conversion, it really gets the juices flowing for me.
Well, it's something, I suppose, as a competition painter as well. It's another potential edge.
Completely. Yeah, I think you're always looking for that something a little bit different. And conversion, I mean, especially I always like the ones where you really have to think about what parts they've used.
Yeah.
Like you look at something and think, what bit's that? And you have to almost, trawl the internet to look at bit sites. And you think, they've used a so-and-so bit from a so-and-so model and changed the head, and it's always good value. Yeah, absolutely. If there's who won the big Golden Demon last year? Can never remember his name. That was last year was David Soper.
With his gut rot spume.
Yes.
He made his gut rot spume stand out amongst others. First off, because it's on like part of a boat and there's water there. And just by doing that immediately, you are raising it a little bit into the attention of the people who are walking around. So just as long as you don't go overboard with it and it detracts from the model, those kind of things can really help, I suppose.
Yeah, and I was looking at Twitter, and Darren Debskibone he put up a picture of someone's, I think it was conversion. I think it might have been for that Inquisimunda.
I think that's, let me, carry on. Sorry, I'll get the website while you're talking.
And he posted up these 3 conversions and just said, these are absolutely amazing. And they were really, really good conversions. How they'd taken some Space Marine bits and bits of, like, you know, really kit bash stuff together, and they looked so dramatic, I suppose is the right word. They look so different to your sort of your standard models. And it is amazing how a good conversion can get you really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to say, because I know, I'm pretty sure it's the same guy, but it's exprofundis.com.
Heard of that.
I believe is the one. Now, he's the guy who certainly encouraged the Age of Sigmar 28 from the Inquisimunda, from that kind of stuff. Yeah, he's got loads. He's got a gallery of all kinds of stuff he's done, and he's very much into that dark, gothic, you know, really oppressive kind of imagery and stuff like that. Very, very Blanchitsu. And he's got his blog, which I'd never I'd actually heard about it, but never visited. A few people were talking about it, and it was only when he kind of, I think he made the whole campaign system for, I could be wrong on this, for Age of Sigmar as well, the Hinterlands. But it's become this thing now. So you've got the Hinterlands as the game system, and then AOS 28, the dark side of Warhammer, I think it's called. Yeah, so he's gone into that. So yeah, there's some awesome stuff, but there are loads of people, and I know they're looking at maybe setting up a Facebook group for that, separate from the Inquisimunda one. So yeah, it's really cool. Actually, it's something that I've seen growing and growing, and there's a lot of talent and a lot of crazy weird stuff going on.
Like crazy weird stuff.
Yeah, it's just because it's so different, you know. Because again, we've talked with Michael about them the ability to go into the depths and the corners of Warhammer where you can't with the main army, because it's, you know, because there's so much of it, and you're setting the fights. But with a small warband, you can go into the nooks and crannies and get into the deepness. So yeah, go and check out Ex Profundis, the blog, because it's fantastic. Fantastic. Okie dokie. I think that will do for the opening of the show. We're going to announce the winner at the end of the show of the competition or the draw for Neil's painted masterpiece, whatever that may be,
yes, whatever it may be, whatever someone chooses.
Yeah, and I think what we'll do is we'll, again, because of the event, we'll leave the news, we'll come back and we'll talk a little bit about the Horus Heresy Weekender 2017. Having said we're going to talk about all the stuff in the Horus Heresy Weekender chat, let's talk about a couple of things that happened outside of that. First of all, Warhammer Fest tickets. Although,
yes.
To be fair, the Horus Heresy rules pack was available at the event for people to peruse.
I didn't see that.
Did you not? Okay, so
no.
£20 each day for regular entry for the tickets. And then they got the Blood Bowl, as we said before, Blood Bowl 40k, Age of Sigmar, and 30k GTs. Now, I looked through the GT pack for 30k, and it does appear to be pure 30k, so no 40k kind of scenarios. It's all Age of Darkness. They made clear that only troops scoring units and a few other bits like that. Best painted nominations get so many points, 10 points, which is equal to like a decent win, I think. But at the end of the day, the person with the most points wins.
Oh, okay.
And to get the major victories, you need to get greater than 10 victory points than your opponent in the scenario. Now, some of those scenarios I think it's quite hard to do. Unless, obviously some games you do just win, Some games there's a rollover and it just happens. But I played things like War of Lies. A lot of times has come down to not many points in it. And you're really you're rolling for those random objectives going, if I get minus points here, I'm in trouble. So my fear is, particularly having listened to the Sons of Heresy guys talk about some of the attitudes at the doubles, that you are going to get people going there to win the GT because it is a tournament. You know, it's unabashedly a tournament. Now that's
you think
not.
There's going to be some people there just purely going out to win, don't you? Know, the list is completely written as filthy as possible.
In fact, this is something that's been going on Twitter recently. I've seen some Warhammer guys talking about you can't moan that people bring hard lists to tournaments, and I don't think you can actually. I don't think it's down to people to self-regulate in a tournament. I think if you're competitive and your tournament is a grand tournament, that kind of style of tournament where you're trying to find the best player, then within the rules of that tournament, you're going to try and bring, if you want to try and win it, you're going to try and bring the best list you can. You know, there's no onus on you to hold that back and to play within the theme or anything like that, is there?
No, definitely not. No.
I think the onus comes down to the person who writes the pack. I think that is where you get set. So if you don't want that kind of attitude, don't make it a tournament. Don't give your prizes to the people who finish first, second, and third. Introduce variables that a lot of top tournament players don't like because they enjoy playing a game of control, almost like chess. And there's nothing wrong with this as well, and absolutely nothing wrong with this. We have a guy at our club, Jack. He's one of the best Warhammer players in the country. He loves playing chess. He plays Warhammer like chess, you know, controls everything as much as he can and, you know, makes the most of it. Very good player. He also really loves the Horus Heresy fluff. Now, if he comes and plays Heresy, I know that he will always be to the harder end of playing the game. Because that's the way he enjoys playing the game. He can roll dice and have fun, but most of his enjoyment comes out of that tactical challenge. So that's not a problem, just that's not the way I want to play very, very often at all. So, for people like that, the more variables you throw at them, they either get with the program and accept it, or they go, well, it's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so you...
And this format is very much of the controlling all angles, isn't it?
Yeah. You know, if you're going to bring... Well, it depends. It depends what people want to get out of it. There will be people going there for all kinds of reasons. However, because of the setup, because it's a GT and classed as a GT and all that, then some people are going to be there to try and smash face. And I couldn't remember couldn't remember if anything was disallowed or not, but generally with GTs they're not. So yeah, you might see a Warlord go down. It might not be that great in that kind of thing, but they might think 4 out of 5 games, actually this Warlord's going to be doing me pretty well. You know, you're going to see things like the old... Well, you can't do it quite so easily now with the Iron Warriors, but the Perturabo deep striking first turn, flipping, you know, not scattering, smashing stuff up list. You know, you're going to see lists that are more honed, more effective points wise, and more brutal than you will at an event which has elements of narrative fed through it. That's what I think. I'm not going to take part in it. I like the fact they're playing games there. I think my enjoyment will be when I'm up there and I've had a look around the first few bits. I can go and look around the armies, see what people are up to. Yeah,
definitely. I think for me it'll be probably going up and just having a look and see what people have put down on the table. See some cool armies, cool conversions.
Yeah.
Cool paint schemes.
Hopefully. As I say, I mean, it's a big discussion that always, you know, comes round every now and then in every game system. Is like, what do people expect of the event they're going to? What do people expect of the people going to that event? And as I say, I don't blame anyone playing within the rules of that event, because that's what people do. That's what humanity does. This is why all my events have got those, you know, they've always got the line in there basically which says I'm the boss, and I can do whatever I want. Because as soon as you say something like that, like as soon as I say that I can just change the rules and make you -1 to hit or do this or whatever, then people, they realise that actually, okay, so if I'm getting too far ahead, if I am too hard, then I'm brought back into line. Well, actually, so the incentive for being too far ahead is not there, hopefully. Mm-hmm. But also, some people will go, well, I don't like that. I want to know that when I put this unit down, I've got a 75% chance of wiping that unit out. Well, you're obviously, if I just turn around and tell you that, oh yeah, you can't see more than 12 inches on this turn, then that's going to muck up your maths in your head as you're playing the game. So, yeah, hopefully it creates a different thing. But hey ho, the tickets are out. So you're going to be entering the Golden Demon with the winner's model.
That's right, I will be.
And hopefully another one as well.
Yeah, well, I want to try and get 2 done if I can.
Shall I try and enter?
I've started work on just a little single entry just to while away the hours while I'm waiting for Forge World to deliver a model that I need to paint, and then we'll see where we go from there.
For a giggle, shall I try and enter a model?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, I might have to do that. I might have to dig out like a Stormcast character or something, and crack on and see. You never know. If I try really hard, might be able to get a fireless pin.
Yeah, you never know. It all depends.
It all depends how much time I've got to sit and paint a single model.
It does, yeah, it does.
I'll have to pull one out.
Because we bought our tickets today, didn't we? The Fest tickets. I was quite pleased with how they structured the pricing. I thought it was quite good that they did £20 a day, £32 for the weekend. So you got a little bit of a discount if you want to go for both days. And then obviously if you bought the tournament ticket, that included the weekend price. So £75 included everything.
Yeah, again, £75 not cheap. Did it say anything about food in those tickets? I haven't looked at those tickets.
I don't think it did say anything about food in those tickets.
And you are quite limited at the venue in what kind of food you have. It's open 10 till 6 on the Saturday and 10 till 4 again on the Sunday. I have only bought a Sunday ticket. I kind of wish I'd just gone and bought a weekend ticket and seen how it had gone. But oh well, such is life. I
thought it was good that they discounted the weekend ticket.
Yeah, that is good.
They haven't done that before, and I think that's quite good. I don't know what you would get out of this going both days, because I think it is pretty much a repeat, isn't it? There's not too much to see. Maybe if you go on the Saturday and you want to be there early, and on the Sunday you can see the Golden Demon. Apart from that, there's not a lot. Well, I would say to differentiate.
Last year we were talking about it, and people came over for the weekend from abroad. Yes. So if you're coming over from like Holland or whatever, and you can make it a 2-day event, that's all the better. With the tournaments there, you've got a lot more to see.
That is true, because if you did all the usual bits and bobs on the Saturday, at least on the Sunday you could just walk around and watch everyone play. You'd
mix it up. You'd do a bit of it knowing that you've still got Sunday to come, where you got Golden Demon, more tournaments, and then talk to the people you didn't talk to on the Saturday.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, there are options in that, which is cool. Anyway, so yes, let's say the pack for the GT or most of the pack was available at the Weekender. The rest of the releases really were available at the Weekender. So the Custodes tank and Dudes kind of box set together.
Yes, 10-man Custodes and the grab assault vehicle thing.
Yeah, the 10 custodians that don't fit in it. Because it's got a 6 custodian capacity, but, it's cool. If those tanks were available by themselves, I would have bought one. But
you know what? I think a lot of people would have done that, because my friend would have done that as well. And he thought, he said, I'm not going to buy one. He said, because I've already got all my custodians. I just want the tank. And it almost made me think that there was still those hanging around, and I think it was on like Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, wow, they haven't sold out. And then I thought, well, it could be because of all the plastic custodians you're going to get with it.
Definitely is. There's a lot of people trading them on. You can find Joe at the club. His solar auxiliary are pretty static as an army, and he's talking about creating a custodian's army that's a bit more in your face, because it has to be because it's custodians, and he's already gone and bought his custodies for like 30 quid here for these 5 on eBay, and 28 quid for those 5 on Facebook trading groups. They're all over the trading groups still, so yeah, you can do a lot of deals still through that. But hey ho, the worst case scenario, they just take them out of the boxes and sell them individually, don't they?
Yes, but I thought it was interesting that obviously they hadn't sold out on those straight away.
Yeah, I think although there are a lot of people who are going to get into them, I think there are a lot of people who won't get into them because a lot of people are getting into them. That whole thing about gamers not wanting to collect the most popular army. Also, some people they've got their armies already, or they don't like loyalists. There's a lot of people who won't pick up any kind of army like that, and also the transport's not necessarily needed. There's other ways to get your custodians to where they need to be, or to have different roles, things like that. So,
and not to mention that obviously probably everyone was waiting to have a good little thumb through the book before they maybe decided what they wanted to buy.
Yeah, that could be part of it as well. Things like all the Terminators can deep strike. So if you're going to go that way, Terminator heavy, then your units don't need the grav. But although looking at the rules of those grav tanks, it's almost £1 a point. They're quite effective for what they do, quite points efficient. I must admit, I was looking, thinking, I might have 1 or 2 of them. But I'll work on a colour scheme first. That's another thing I'm painting up.
More stuff.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, it's all part of the fun. Which is cool. Okay, so the other things they had on sale at the weekender, we had the limited edition, it's the event-only custodian, Zios? No,
Zion someone, yeah.
Yeah, no one really looked at his name. No, but he's, I was putting mine together today, actually. It's a really nice kit.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is.
I was shocked at how nice it was for an event-only model. I know there's some of the event-only models that have been nice and really are nice models, but I was seriously thought, why are they not selling this to the broader public?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So it's 45 quid. Not cheap.
Not cheap.
Came in a character series box, which was interesting. He does have some rules, but yeah, he's standing there with his axe, which is cool. It's another different weapon with the steps behind him are pretty cool as well because it creates quite a nice pose for him. The only thing I don't like with it is it's got those gates on the shoulder pads where it goes over the back of the gate, and you can very easily lose the very top centre of the shoulder pad when you're trying to remove them.
Oh yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So the shoulder pad's flush, and then the gate comes over the top of the back of it to to connect it in an overlay, and there's quite a large amount of resin there, and it's much thicker than the bit that you want to keep, and so on mine, like a very small V came out in the top of the shoulder pad.
You have to be so careful, don't you, with those gates when you cut bits out.
Yeah, those ones particularly. But yeah, it went together fine. Went together really well, actually. I was like, sometimes with those poses when they've got their arm and the weapons on the floor, they can be a bit funny. You have a little bit of variance in the arm, and then it's not standing upright, but it went together really well. Very impressed.
Yeah, I thought it was a very good pose and a very beautiful sculpt, and I was really impressed with the face as well, because I think sometimes the face can really sell it. And for me, the face was amazing, especially he's got a beard as well.
Yeah, well,
beard custodian.
Blimey. So that's cool. I've kept the head separate for painting.
Oh, well done.
Everything bar the head. Got my cork out. So, let's try.
Did you say that you've only just bought some corks as well?
Yeah, I just went on eBay for like 99p. Bought you buy them by weight. So I've got like 40 corks. Just like, that'll do. Just, got a little bit of wire. I've got a plastic head. I'm doing some conversions on some stuff at home. So the plastic heads I'm fine drilling into, and then I'll cut the cut the wire clean against it. And the other one, just stick them to a little bit of whatever and work away. So Mrs. was a bit confused when I was getting corks out.
make an Australian hat or something.
Yes, very strange. Bless her. But yeah, she'd only just worked out that I had to build them as well as paint them, which kind of blew her mind. But it's all fun. So yeah, and then the only other thing really on sale was the book.
Well, there were the assault cannons and the shields and...
Were there?
Yes, and I think everyone missed those.
They did, because they weren't obvious and out.
Because I remember queuing up and going, I don't know if I said it to you or someone else, and I said, are these out yet? And someone said to me, oh yeah, they've been out ages. And I looked at them and went, I don't remember these assault cannons coming out. And then I put them back down, and it was only when I got back from the weekender and I looked on the website and I went, no, they're definitely not out.
You could have made a killing on them.
I could have done. I don't think anyone was picking them up.
Yeah, so, okay, that's good news. That means they're probably going to be with us not too long, which would be good.
Yes.
And I think we've talked about it before. I think I've said that I was told that Forge World are looking to come more in line, to have less of a lead time on these things. And in fact, when we come to things like Magnus, my predictions about what we're going to see of Magnus was pretty much spot on. We did.
In fact, I was thinking that all the way through the weekend, and at the end of the weekender, I thought, damn it, Greg was right.
we did get to see the back of him in the book. You know,
yes.
Everyone's trying to kind of get as close to their book as they can to study that image.
Well, I had a magnifying glass with me, and I got the magnifying glass out.
Bless you. So I heard on the Friday he wasn't there, so it didn't surprise me too much. We did see we saw enough in the cabinets, but again, I don't think it's going to be a huge amount of time before, say, those assault cannons are out, the spear dreadnought, and then moving on to things like the jet bikes and stuff, which we'll go on to. So I've been to 5 Heresy weekenders now. It's 5, isn't it? I believe it is. And books have been released at a few of those.
Yes.
Never has a book been released. So the first thing they did was open it on the sales on the Friday, and it was full sales area, except for Black Library. They came Saturday, which wasn't so much of an issue because we only had Garrow and the Binary Succession audio. It was good because originally I was told the Binary Succession wasn't going to be there, so we had 2 pre-releases from Black Library, which is good. And again, not that unexpected because those are the next things that are out within about a month. Everything else is beyond that for Heresy, so I wasn't surprised at that. So on that Friday, people queue up. I was a bit annoyed when they moved the queue, but hey, these little things.
Well, I felt as though that was coming, and I was wandering around going, they're not going to allow everyone to swarm this again. And it was just when they said, right, everyone go this way, the queue's going to be formed from this point, and you could see everyone around the other side go, oh no.
Yeah, so I did a little video on Facebook. Some people saw it, of a little walk around the hotel, because it shows you how small the hotel is. It's not a vast expanse. And where I walked down one of the corridors, we started queuing there. Now, on the Friday, there were only, 100 people there, maybe?
Yeah.
So it worked fine. They were letting 5 or so people into the sales area. Once they'd cleared enough of them, they let the next 5 in. I felt they could have let a few more in, but in general, that was fine. For what was around on Friday night, it worked. So could have let a few more in at once, and it might have gone a bit quicker. Because some people were literally like me. I just went book, character, thank you very much. Whereas
let's rephrase that. That was jump queue, book, character. Thank you very much.
No, that was someone holding the space for me.
What you mean, the big cuddle? Oh, Miles, haven't seen you for all of 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was all good. There were all listeners to the show around there. And so. For me it was book, character, move on. I think next year more people are going to turn up on the Friday. Not necessarily everyone, but you're going to get a bigger queue. Also, they need to tell people that they have to go and queue, because you had to walk in the front door, past the sales stand, to even work out there was a queue. So more than one person just walked in and went, "Oh, I'll register. Brilliant, thank you." And they just walked in straight away and bought stuff. And then Saturday, it was a bit disorganised in that the queue for the registration was right at the front, and the queue went out the door. And luckily, it was sunny.
Yes.
Yeah, wasn't cold, but it wasn't particularly warm. But if it was wet and cold, that really wouldn't have worked. But
yeah, and I would have liked it because when we were queuing up as well, as soon as we got past the registration bit, we obviously had book in hand and everything, and the guy said, "Look, can I open this? I'm going to buy it." And they said, "Yeah, sure." And it actually made the whole queuing up to pay bit a lot easier when you're sort of thumbing through the new book. And I felt as though if they did something similar where you could pick up your copy and you were queuing to register and buy it, then at least then you could kill a bit of time while you flick through all the new rules and bits and bobs.
Yeah, you're right. I feel that if you were unscrupulous on that Friday, you could have gone round to the back of the queue again. And if you don't know the staff, I don't think they'd really clock onto that fact.
Buy 2 books, you mean?
Yeah, buy 2 books, buy multiple characters, whatever. That could be dumb.
They did get right. There was plenty of books and characters.
There were 300. There were 350 books. Now,
exactly.
I believe so. Yes, that's what I was told. Now, not everyone at the at the weekend actually buys the book. Some people don't. So, you're always going to have a few left, and then people are always going to gobble up the remainder. So you're always going to sell the 350 because of mates wanting them and things like that. But you do still have the potential for that to be abused a little bit. And I said before that some form of paper ticket you hand over, I still think wouldn't be a bad idea. They already put 5 or 6 items in the bag when you get your registration. Putting that in there, I've worked on a production line. Don't get me wrong, it's not fun, but it doesn't add. Like adding a 6th item to put in is one extra hand movement.
Yes, versus
it's not, yeah.
The arguments of someone coming in on the Saturday and not getting their copy of their book.
Yeah, so potentially that's something to look at. But the book itself, because then everyone just dispersed and was reading their books.
Yeah, it was a quiet time, wasn't it, on Friday?
Yeah, it was. I went and sat in and watched some of the Adeptus Titanicus that was going on, and sat there with the book with 2 or 3 people. And we were just chatting about. Got so engrossed in it. I haven't seen a book release where so many people are so engrossed in that book. For me, it was a case of someone came up and said, "Oh, what are Magnus's rules like?" And I'm like, I haven't even looked at them yet. I've looked at the Custodes and the Space Wolves, and I'm absorbing it all because everything was so themed. It was so. I get the feeling that even the Thousand Suns, that there just seemed to be much more. And I hate to say it because it makes it sound like the other books didn't do that as well, but they do. But it just felt to be that little extra theme in those armies. And I think a lot of it is because of the uniqueness of the troops involved. So Space Wolves HQ system, not using, you have to have 1 HQ per 1,000 points in Space Wolves, which harks back to the old 2nd edition rulebook, or whatever it was.
Yes, putting like Wolfguard in tactical squads and things.
Yeah, well, no, it was you had to have just the fact that you had to purchase 1 HQ per 750 points, and in 30k now you have to purchase 1 HQ per 1,000 points, and it kind of removes the HQ selection in the force org chart you're using and replaces it with that. It replaces your tactical squads with the Space Wolf squad, which can be made in a huge variety of ways, and just those 2 things mean that that army changes a lot. The way you build that army changes a lot. And then with Thousand Suns, the fact that you have to choose which cult your leader's from, means that you have to then balance up your compulsories have to come from that cult. You have to choose how many cults you're going to have effectively. And those things do change the way you look at your army quite a lot. That's before you start really looking at the specialist units and things like that. It just seemed to work really well in the book. It just felt right. Now they're Turns out there are a lot of questions that people are bringing up. Some are easier to solve than others. Some just need a bit of common sense and a look at the fluff, and you'll probably work out the way they're all supposed to work. Some of them are a little bit more ambiguous, so who knows? I think it's the first time they've used, they had a team of 3, team of 4, something like that, writers on it, because you had, I can't remember the names of the other people now, so I'm not going to try and remember them, but I know that Alan has worked with John and people before on writing them, but I think it was a slightly larger team effort. I could be wrong, but I've heard that. I don't know whether that's the issue or whether there are a number of, because of the amount of different rules, different things not working in the same style. You're always going to get them. You're always going to get these things like the custodians have the Misericordia rule, but it was part of their war gear, and everyone's going, "What's this? What's this war gear? What's this war gear?" It was a name for the knife they carry, which did have a rule, and then they removed that rule, and they missed out on taking the name out of the. It's just an extra close combat weapon. So, you're always going to get...
like the way Alan Bly explained it as well in the seminar.
I wasn't
enjoyed that bit.
I wasn't in that seminar.
You missed out.
Yeah, but these things do happen, and yes, we're paying £80 for a book, and yes, you do want it to be, but actually, these things are always done to last minute. They're always trying to. It's not just writing a book; it's writing a game system, or it's balancing something roughly within that system. Which is cool. And then, you get to reach Primarchs as well. So we did spend quite a bit of time working out just how hard Leman Russ is in close combat.
Every time you read it, it got a little bit harder, didn't he?
Well, yes and no. It was like, at the end of the day, he's still a Primarch. You can still kill him with high strength, low AP attack, shots and attacks. The key is if he's in base to base contact with an enemy, they're going to struggle. And even the best of the enemies are going to struggle. Now, can you kill Leman Russ? Of course you can. In fact, you don't even have to kill Leman Russ because he's a close combat character who does only so much for your army. So just as long as you're holding him up, he's not Alfarius giving everything on your table all these special rules, and he's not Magnus, who's going to be psychic powering stuff and turning really low strength psychic powers into D shots if he wants to. He's not going to. He has to be earning his points by killing stuff. So you can use him to control the board space a bit because other Primarchs are going to run away from you. They just are.
Yes, they are.
They're
going to leg it.
In fact, a couple of guys were playing that night with the new rules, and first round, Perturabo slammed down Russ and caused a couple of wounds on him, and Russ didn't do any wounds to Perturabo, and it was like, ooh, actually, we got this all wrong. Am I thinking, have I got my numbers a bit wrong? And I walked away from the table, and they came up to me about an hour later and went, yeah, three turns later, Russ killed him. It was like, oh no, maybe that is right then. But
because Perturabo's a tough Primarch as well, isn't he? He's pretty nails.
Yeah, absolutely. But the essence of the character for me was very right. You've got, and we'll do an Inferno bit, so we'll move on in a minute. But it's an explanation of the feeling of Friday night was this kind of buzz of excitement. It really was. People were running around trying to make lists of their armies, trying to work out who can kill Russ, trying to work out can Magnus sit at the board and just kill everything. Well, maybe he can. And then the custodians, and then looking through for Easter eggs as well. So there was this general buzz of excitement Friday. And Russ is cool in that he started these. I had 2 or 3 conversations over the weekend. People were going, well, he's overpowered. He's overpowered. And I saw it. I've seen it online loads. He's not overpowered. He is as hard as nails in combat. He is the combat monster. And some people think he shouldn't be because of what they've read in the books, particularly citing the Night of the Wolf, when Angron forces him to the ground, but Russ says, well done, but, you're dead, even if you kill me. And I've always said, well, actually, Russ was trying to teach a lesson here. Unfortunately for Russ, he didn't realise that Angron doesn't care if he lives or dies. So he made a mistake in thinking that actually the threat of taking Angron's life was a punishment. It wasn't. So he's engineered this position, and it hasn't happened. And the guy turned around to me and said, because a friend of mine, I think James was with me at the time, and he said, "Oh, you're Space Wolf, fanboys." I said, "Well, actually, it was Guilliman who told this story. This is not a Space Wolf perspective. This is another aspect." But either way, Lehman Russ, because it happens in Wolf King as well. A lot of Space Wolf fans were like, "Oh, they've ruined the Legion. We're not the executioners." Other people were like, "Oh, they just thought this." But to be able to believe you are something, you have to have some form of evidence or something to back it up. So to believe the Space Wolves are the Emperor's executioners, if they couldn't beat any other Space Marine Legion, then it would be hard for them to believe it themselves. Do you know what I mean? Yes. It's like saying, it's like you believing you can win a Slayer sword, and then me believing I can win a Slayer sword, or someone telling me I can. I'll be like, shut up, I can't. But you're there or thereabouts, so you've always got the opportunity. So making Russ hard enough that he can be seen to be the Emperor's executioner is an important part of what Lehman Russ should be. And that kind of encapsulated what I thought of these rules. Now, are there some points which seem a bit low? Maybe. Are there some points which seem a bit high? Maybe. Are there some units? I think the Thousand Suns have potentially a very clear way of playing themselves. The Space Wolves, I think, are much more, if you play badly with them, you will get murdered. I think you have to really kind of know what you're doing to make that army work really well. Yeah,
I think you're right. Actually, I think they've got a lot of aspects of being a really, really powerful army, but you've got to play them right.
Yeah, and just the fact that a lot of their rules are combat based. Combat's not as good as shooting in the current edition.
True.
Who knows what happens going forwards, but just that fact. So yes, Friday night was spent a lot of looking at the book, and I went to bed at 1. I think I came into your room for a bit where you guys were chatting about painting and stuff.
What you mean? And frantically painting? You mean?
Frantically painting. Yeah. Matty was there. His was finished, wasn't it?
His was finished. He was sort of just toying around with it as I was sort of losing the will to live.
But yeah, in the bar, there was a lot of catching up, as there always is at these events. You may have seen the couple of the ghostly images that have been shown in Book 7, where a bit of art direction went a little bit awry. That was causing
the Tiska City tourists, wasn't it?
Yeah, some tourists in Tiska.
And the ironic thing was, we also got a postcard in the bag, didn't we?
Yes, so yeah, those tourists sent that postcard, bless them. The artist of which was there that weekend, and people were asking him to sign the errors. But, that's not good. It shouldn't be happening. It's happened. We're always going to have a little bit of a laugh about that, I think. But there we go, we get on with it. But yeah, Friday was very kind of chilled. People playing Blood Bowl in the bar. People, some people showing off their models for the weekend. A lot of army lists being talked about. All that, and a lot of guessing of what was going to be coming over the weekend.
Well, it was interesting because I felt there's a very different vibe on the Friday to how it is usually, because obviously we usually, on a Friday night, you've got a few people there, but everyone's just sort of really wants to know what's going to happen. And, because of the pre-registration and we got the book, it was a whole different dynamic because people were just talking about
much more energetic.
What was in the book and, oh my God, have you seen this? Have you seen that? Versus everyone just having a good old drink up and just getting ready for the weekend.
Yeah, little things like seeing the picture of the transport, the Inquisitor or something. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. The Sisters of Silence transport. There's a picture here. Or the picture of the back of Magnus. People, as you say, people trying to study that. So Friday became like, is Magnus going to be here? Because we can see his back, so he's going to be here. Or is that transport going to be here? And then going into the weekend, I think we'll cover the seminars with James, who went to most of them. I didn't go to some of them this year, less than any other year. But we can look at the models, and it was even more excitement from the models as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So, should we start with the custodian? Well, we got to see the Moritats painted up. So they've got to be close, because some people thought they were going to be available.
They've got to be very close, actually. And it was. Shall we also say that obviously this year there was obviously heightened security, shall we say, around the studio area. Heightened security. Yeah. Well, but then they'd also changed it around a bit, hadn't they? They sort of split it into two.
Initially they got rid of the demo pods, and they decided to put the guys just at tables so people could approach them to ask individual questions, because demo pods, they're always doing the same kind of stuff, they found, and it wasn't always easy for people to see either. There was an issue, first seminar, wasn't there, that there wasn't enough space for everyone to enter, and that was brought up. I agree, you're paying £75 a ticket, you're paying for a room, you're paying for food, and you basically told you can't go to one of the seminars. Seems a bit off. So it was a bit frantic, but they did get on it straight away, and they moved the room with all the painters and the designers. They moved that into the room with the other guys, so they were all together, which actually I felt worked fine anyway. I thought that was quite good.
And you know what? Because one thing I was shocked at that was we didn't have a big display piece like they usually used to have, and because that made the main studio room feel quite empty and quite spacious. So when they did move everything in there, it just felt like normal in a way. Yeah. It felt like how it should be.
Yeah, you might be right. I think with Warhammer World up the road, I almost feel like they don't need to show off the big things.
It's very cool when they've done a new one.
It does take a lot of space.
It does. It's just very cool when you see a new one, because it's something else to look at and have a good study of, and try and find the Where's Wally Marine, all that sort of stuff. But I must admit, it maybe obviously they didn't have time to do it, or they felt as though they didn't need to do it, for me, I do quite enjoy those bits.
Those guys are working on keeping that display hall up to date all the time. Maybe it would have been the Prospero board, but that's in the display hall, looking amazing. So they're going to want to drive you in there anyway. And I think if you go up and you don't go up very often, then take that extra half day. Bugman's open late on Fridays, the whole Warhammer World. So go and have a look around, that kind of thing. So it was good. They addressed that, and then for the rest of the weekend, everyone could attend every seminar if they wanted to.
Yeah, there's plenty of room after.
Plenty of room, which was very, very good. Okay, so new models. We start with. What should we start with? The custodians.
Yeah, it's probably the majority of it.
Yeah, so we'd already seen the dreads, haven't we?
Yes.
So they weren't new, but we got some jet bikes.
Yes, which everyone seemed to like.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the rules for these guys are pretty good as well. It'll be interesting to see kind of what sets they're sold as. And these are about a third bigger than a normal jet bike. So packs of 3, they're going to be... I'm kind of hoping they stay just under £100 for 3. Because jet bikes aren't cheap.
They're not cheap.
Ones. And these are big models. And I want some for my army. Maybe not with the power spears quite so obvious, although they do look cool. I want them for the guns. But they are fantastic. They follow a lot of the shape of the Grav tanks as well, the Palladus and the Calidus and the Pallas. They've got that same kind of turned down nose at the end with the air intake.
Yes, they do. I mean, the whole army's very well themed, and they do really tie in beautifully.
Yeah, but I love them. I think they're amazing.
Yes,
amazing models. And more of them. And we got the Sagittarium. So these are the models that we saw on the front cover. that was mentioned with the huge bolt guns, which basically are kind of heavy bolters and a bit. And yeah, it's when you look at them in their hands, it's like, oh, they're big bolt guns. And then when you put a Space Marine next to them, it's like, no, they're not. they're super massive heavy weapons. They're really awesome.
I think sometimes you get a bit thrown out by the scale of the Custodes, because I was building this, the Marine I'm telling you I'm building for Golden Demon, the little Thousand Sun dude. I thought, I'll use a head. Oh, what head should I use? I was just flicking through my sprues. I thought, I'll use the Custodian head. And I went to put it in the Terminator arm and went, oh, it doesn't really fit. And then I got out, I thought, okay, let's just check the size. So I got one of the Terminator heads, and it is considerably bigger, a Custodian head, than a standard Terminator head.
Very much so. Yeah, no, they are beasts. Absolute beasts. And as you read through the description of the fighting in Inferno, you start to really see the Custodians against the Space Marines. It's quite cool. Quite cool. Yeah, but those guys look awesome. And, a bit of longer range punch for your infantry.
Yes.
They're quite cool. And they're going to be upgrade packs for the plastics as well, which is really good. So you're just buying that, which is really cool. And then they had
death rays.
And then they had one more. They had the heavy dreadnought.
Yes.
So what do you think of that?
I really liked it. I thought it was amazing. I mean, I had a friend that wasn't too sold on it, but I think when we first saw it in the new models seminar, because it was shown in there first, wasn't it? And then they brought it on the Sunday. I felt as though I liked it on the picture, and I liked it even more when I saw it in real life because of all the little details that you couldn't really see on the screen. But for me, it looks amazing. Those big sort of sweeping shoulders and the missiles at the back. It just was pretty exciting.
So from the front, I quite like it. I think the shoulder pads for me go a little bit too big, but it's also quite reminiscent of the old Terminator. I can't remember which mark it was, but with the domed top with the gun in the top. So it does resemble that a little bit. So I understand. And when you go side on, it's kind of hard to describe the shape, but it's because it's elongated. It's a bit like a deodorant stick in the kind of shape of it, because it's Custodian. The dreadnoughts are quite stocky, but this is elongated it and then curved it up. So yeah, it wouldn't put me off buying one, but and I'm not too sure how they could have done it. Maybe just left it a bit more rounded for me, rather than going up to the pointed kind of style. But its gun looks awesome. I don't even know what gun that is. I didn't even ask.
Just too busy looking at it.
It's just, and the big kind of like the shin plates and stuff look amazing on it. It's a beast. It is a beast, and heaven knows how it's going to be used in game. But who knows? Who knows? We did get to see, so we know that they're going to go back and look at some of the earlier books where they missed out units.
Yes.
So we got the Moritats that are coming. We got some Iron Warriors. Some of the Tyrant Siege Terminators with packs. Nice. They're nice, these, because they're not overdone.
Yeah, they were quite subtle, and in a way, I think we saw these. Did we see these in the second room when they were first in the sort of the hobby area? And I sat down with Mark Bedford as he was talking about his painting his gold technique, which was very interesting. And I just saw them in front of him. I remember pointing to you and going, "Have you seen these?" And you went, "Yeah, they're over there."
Yeah.
And you've already taken a picture and sort of put it up.
Yeah, I like them. I like them because they're understated. It's like some people said they didn't like them when they saw them unpainted, but seeing them painted saw that actually there's a little bit more detail on there than they thought.
Yeah, and I think that, but then again, that's very Iron Warriors, isn't it? That's
exactly
what you would want.
Yeah, they're not going to be.
They were covered in loads and loads of little details and stuff. You would say that it wasn't Iron Warriors-esque.
Yeah, it wouldn't really fit their general theme of not being too ostentatious. So I really like that. And as I say, the Moritats are amazing. I keep going on about them because they look so cool.
They do look cool.
They do look very cool. And then it was some of the Thousand Suns stuff. So Thousand Suns, the new Contemptor Terminator, Contemptor Dreadnought, the psychic one, the Osiren.
Yes.
Now,
with a massive blade.
Yeah, so seeing this painted, or part painted, should we say? Oh my word! It's like, why would you ever buy the normal one anymore, ever? The pyramid with the eye on top with the braids. I can see some people going, that's a bit too much for me. I can understand that. But as you say, that blade coming out of the power fist, the scarab on the shoulder, just the chest plate with a scarab, winged scarab looks amazing.
Just floaty sort of bits coming down the front and the loincloth. It's got it all going on.
Yeah, smashed it out of the park with that model.
Oh,
really?
Do you know what, when I saw the half-painted one,
yeah,
I remember I thought to myself, oh wow, someone's done a really cool conversion here. And then I thought, oh no, they're releasing this. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, no, it looks absolutely fantastic. Alongside that, we had the Thousand Suns Sekhmet Terminators. So again, This is an upgrade sprue for the Kauth Terminators, with the main guy being fully resin, I think. Yeah, he's a more dynamic pose. Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to keep the cost down, which is good.
Yes.
And again, they've embraced the Egyptian thing. So again, if you don't like the full kind of big headdresses almost and stuff like that, then they might not be quite as for you. But I think they look great. They've got their curved blades as well. They look awesome. And that lead character looks cool.
He does.
Making that Terminator armor look very mobile.
Do you know what I really liked about this as well is because the plastic Zinch stuff that came out, which was all Tartarus sort of pattern. Yeah. It's nice that they've obviously then done this in Cataphracti. So then you've got, I mean, if you're a Thousand Sun player, you're a bit of spoiled for choice, but you can pretty much do whatever you like now. If you want Cataphracti, you've got it. If you want some Tartarus, you could easily buy the plastic set and convert stuff up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very, very fortunate.
Yeah, loads of cool stuff going on. And they also had the Kenatai Occult Blade Squad. So these are the guys with the two blades, which again is an upgrade sprue for the plastics. So chest, heads and blades, arms. And maybe some other bits. But yeah, no, they look fantastic as well. Really, really smashing it. Again, it's simple, and it bridges the gap really well. It's something that they do with the Space Wolves as well, I think. But these guys look really cool.
Definitely.
And then the final thing for the Thousand Suns were the Castellax Archaea Battle Automata. So these are they're not run by the Mechanicum style of running them. I can't remember what it's called now. Mine's gone blank.
Machine Spirit or the...
Yeah, they're the Cortex controller. They're not run by Cortex controllers. This is psychically linked, and you can actually use them to launch your psychic powers from. So you can fire your psychic powers from behind a building through a Dreadnought, through a Castellax. But they got these wicked curved blades, fingered blades, which look phenomenal. And there's that little...
They did a great job on these because they look really sort of well...
Arcane.
Arcane and Thousand Sun
Yeah.
conversion, if you know what I mean. It wasn't like they just bolted on a couple of new shoulder pads or...
The very simple fact of, say, the curved blades on their fingers, and instead of the smooth dome head, they just put the little Thousand Suns kind of like little two-pillared kind of headdress just in the middle of it. And just that in itself would help do it, but then the guns have got a little bit more ornamentation on them. And it really does create something very, very cool. And of course, removing the skull head in the little bit as well. So, yeah, these guys are wicked. And
if you're a Thousand Sun player, you're so spoiled.
Yeah, and I think the Space Wolves will be as well. The Space Wolf stuff had just been... I think they've got the first casts back to make the cast of it. It's a black... Basically, it's a black resin at that point, and it doesn't show off the detail when you're looking at it. Yeah, so they hadn't got... If they'd had the first grey resins, they would have bought them, but they didn't. They're just behind on that, and that's why we didn't get them. I was talking to one of the many designers, artistes, there. But yeah, that's cool. We did get the Space Wolves Contemptor.
Yes, indeed.
What do you think of that?
Do you know? I like it. I'm not massively sold on it. I do think it looks really cool, and if I was collecting Space Wolves, I'd definitely be buying one. But I don't think it's their best Contemptor that they've done.
Seeing the painted one looks so much better.
Yeah,
and that's not. I quite liked the resin one, but the painted one looks phenomenal. The actual the helmet of the head inside is phenomenal. The wolf cloak on the shoulder, you can take that off if you want. For me, who doesn't want to use the wolf head, I want to use my own Legion symbol. You can just swap the shoulder pads over, and then that wolf cloak will hide that wolf head shoulder pad.
Oh, handy!
Really handy. And I was talking to one of the guys. I can't remember which one it was now for the life of me, but where we've talked about 30k is all about the Celtic runes for the Space Wolves, and 40k is all about the Space Wolfy fur and all that. Actually, what they're going to make is going to be the Celtic stuff with a bit of the fetishes. So it's going to have a little bit of that going through it. Not too much, but you're going to get the wolf teeth that are being held because they're living up to their name, which is what they do, which I quite like. So you're going to see they're talking about upgrade sprues for the base troops, for the grey, whatever they're called. I can't remember the name for the life of me. Maybe the Terminators might be resin, the bodyguards, but they've not quite decided whether it's going to be upgrades or full resin models. But I like the idea of having a little bit of the wolfiness about them.
Whatever they make, it will definitely sell.
Oh yeah, of course it will. So on the Facebook groups for Space Wolves, the Space Wolves fans seem to be a bit more dismayed than other people about the Space Wolf rules. It's quite sad but funny to see people moaning or whatever about the rules. But the fact that you can take Terminators with double frost blades of various kinds is they're gonna be rubbish, but they're gonna look really cool. And the fact is, you're gonna want because they're particularly they're Lehman Russ's bodyguard, so you're gonna want Russ up there straight away. So people are already going right. Cestus, Spartan, or Storm Eagle. It's which one am I going to take? Which one am I going to take? So, yeah, there's loads of cool stuff that people are looking at. Yeah, and I like them. I like the way they've gone with the Space Wolves. I think it's really cool. I know some people won't because they don't want their 30Ks to have wolf effects, but they're called the Space Wolves.
Yeah, and I think they're going to look amazing, and you've got to allow a little bit of crossover.
Yeah,
keep everyone happy.
At the end of the day, you can probably remove some of it as well, or just use more standard models.
Yeah, definitely. If you feel as though that you really don't like it, then just make your own or do something unique if you have to.
Yeah, absolutely. And what else did we have? We had the Mechanicum.
Yeah, they got a bit of love.
Yeah, that is one beautiful, beautiful tank. So this is a new tank, and it's got twin missile bays in the centre with these guns on arms that work independently of the rest of the tank, so you can shoot them at different targets. Which is really cool.
It looks pretty cool, doesn't it?
It looks amazing. Those missile banks in the middle just look phenomenal, and there's options for taking the nasty stuff in them as well. So yeah, and you just know that okay, what should we do for the Mechanicum? Let's give them 2 or 3 more weapon options on those arms.
Exactly, yeah.
It's so easy to do, or give them a slightly different weapon option. The bays where the bombs are, you could almost have a little raised bit in there and put another gun in there. And the Triorus body looks great anyway.
Yes.
So playing around with that is just always going to be onto a winner, I think.
Oh, definitely, yeah, definitely.
So that'll be cool. And then we didn't see the models, but we had all the rules for using the Titan Legions, the Skitari that run around the Titan Legions as well. And we had the the rules that made me want to buy a Warlord for a Psi Titan.
The Psi Titan, which was, I think you were reading it to me actually at the time. I think it was when they were doing the participation game on the Friday night. I think you were reading it to me. And I just remember just walking off going, that is ridiculous.
Oh, it is. It's totally ridiculous, but it's just so cool. And the background again of it is so cool. It's actually piloted by Psychic Null, because everyone else, anyone else would just get torn to shreds. And it just uses Psychers as batteries, and once they're dead, they're just ejected out the back of the machine as it walks along and stuff. It's so cool.
Do you think they're going to make an actual model for that?
No, well, it's a Warlord, isn't it? I mean,
maybe a couple of different weapon arms.
It's got a different, standard.
Head.
It's got a different weapon. Yeah, maybe a head, maybe a few little bits and pieces. But at the end of the day, it's still a Warlord. So, how many people are going to go and buy it? But actually, it's really hard. So maybe quite a few. Yeah, really hard. But there we go. And then that was pretty much it, except for Sunday, we got to see Stingray.
We did.
Or a Dune sandworm, or a droid carrier from episode 1. Lots of different influences. Everyone of a different age group came up with something different. But the troop carrier for the Sisters of Silence.
Really cool, this model.
Yeah.
Really liked it.
So my first thoughts were it felt very much like Super Marionation, Thunderbirds / Stingray / whatever. Very almost old school 50s sci-fi inspired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, I can see that.
I think Alan Bly described it as the children catcher. Because the rules,
he did, didn't he?
Yeah,
and he said, "I won't do the voice."
Yeah, no, because the rules for it as well is like it's quite hard to shoot at when it's not particularly close to you. All of a sudden, it appears out of nowhere, and it's got those 3 big doors on it which all fold back, and you get the open or the closed versions, and actually with magnets, you could very easily just have them interchangeable to whichever one you want. Sister Silas jump out, grab a Psyker, put it in one of the little chambers and go, right, you're off to feed a Psi Titan or the Emperor or whoever needs to be fed these things. Yeah, I love it. I think it's a fantastic model. I understand that some people won't. It's a very different aesthetic.
That's exactly what I liked about it, actually.
That's
exactly what I liked, because when I looked at it, I thought, great, it's something that doesn't look like a Space Marine vehicle. It doesn't look like Imperial Army. It doesn't look like Mechanicum. It is completely unique. And if they do a few more things along that line, it could be amazing.
Yeah, definitely. The Talons of the Emperor Army's got a lot of stuff. Yeah, the Custodes stuff doesn't look like Space Marine stuff at all either. So there's a lot of options in there, which are very, very cool. And that was all we saw until the picture of Magnus. So all we got of Magnus was his beautiful, beautiful face.
Yes. Yeah, his lovely face.
Yeah, so we've got a good idea now of kind of how the whole model will look. I don't think it's going to be a huge way off, because the face was the bit that they were struggling with, I believe. And we've seen the whole back of the model in the book. Yeah. So I can't believe that he would have done the back and not, and just left the front.
Well, for me, the fact that the part we saw was painted says that it's done.
Yeah.
It's done. It's probably in production. It's ready to roll. And I was a bit annoyed it wasn't there, because I felt as though if it was ready, I would like to have seen it. But the theory of it's a 3-month lead that we now see, I can live with that. I can live with that.
It may be that actually, because they paint that one of the early ones. It might be that we've started to make it, but we need to get the numbers up before we start selling it.
Possibly, yeah.
So, and I know that demand is high on Forge World at the moment. Adeptus Titanicus, basically, if they released it when they want to release it and they made everything resin, it would probably break Forge World. That's kind of they've worked out that Adeptus Titanicus is going to sell, which we'll talk about at various points. Is some of it will probably be plastic initially. Blood Bowl's already selling well. You go on eBay and search for Blood Bowl dice or just the Blood Bowl Dwarf team, which is going to be available soon. It ran out for a bit, but it was going for silly money. So, yeah, Forge World are going to be testing their limits. And I think this 3-month window then also allows them to get ahead of the game almost. Although it hasn't changed anything, you're going to get less demand, less expectation, because people know what's coming up in 6 months' time and what have you.
And if that's true that, we're only seeing what's out in 3 months sort of time, all that stuff that we saw, if that's out in 3 months, we've got a bumper 3 months to come, haven't we, with lots of cool releases.
And 3 months is a bit arbitrary, arbitrary. We could be looking a little bit further than that, I think, because again, this is their big day. So yes. it's not
like a wedding.
Yeah. So if they're going to show anything a little bit further, they're going to have to make sure they've got enough to show off a Heresy Weekender. So I could see the Heresy Weekender being a little bit longer period of time, and then the open days you having 1, 2, or 3 things to be shown, because that's what's coming out that you don't know about. But I mean, again, that's partly speculation. But yeah, no, it was really cool. In terms of what we saw, in terms of what we saw coming out, I think it was all smashing it. I say I love that Space Wolf Contemptor. That's the one thing you pretty much were like, yeah.
I'm not. I mean, I really like Space Wolves, but I was like, yeah, okay, it's cool. The Custodes stuff was really getting me fired up, because I think the problem I got was I got a couple of friends that want to do Custodes, and when you start reading the rules, you start thinking, I could do Custodes. Oh, those jet bikes look nice. I like those dreadnoughts. And then suddenly your mind's always ticking and going over. And I think that with the Space Wolves, I'm pretty much like, yeah, take them or leave them. So I'm not as excited to see them.
Yeah, and that's always going to have a bearing on how you receive the models as well. But I say, looking across it all, I'd be tempted to buy any of them, to be fair.
if they put any of that stuff up for pre-release that was available that weekend, I think it would have been a bit of a wow. Let's go and get some of that stuff now. It's really cool.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. How to say, we haven't got what was shown at the open day. We've got all that out now, haven't we? Is the wolves and the grab tanks. So
yeah,
I don't think there's anything from the open day. So we're on to the period of time now. We'll be releasing the stuff that's available that was shown at the Weekender. And if we look to Warhammer Fest, when's that? May? End of May? So
End of May.
March, April, May, 3-month period of time. We could feasibly have a lot of that out by May and be looking at a few more things leading up to the next open day.
That'll be cool.
When you look at it like that, actually then it starts to make a lot of sense going forwards. But we'll see. Could be completely wrong. But,
We do get it wrong more than we get it right.
Absolutely. But overall, your features of the weekend it was very good?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I still really enjoyed it. And I think you actually summed it up quite well for me, that when I think we were talking about at the end of the weekend, it's never, ever has been as good as the first 2 Heresy Weekenders.
No.
Because the first 2 were just literally amazing. And they were just so exciting, and everything was new and everything was amazing. But then they're still doing a really good job.
Yeah, and everything was coming out. It was a rapid pace at the start.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been to 5. I've talked to you. I'm going to talk more about kind of my expectations later on as well. We'll get the other guys to mention some stuff. But certainly, I've been to 5 now, and I didn't go to as many seminars because I roughly know what's going to be asked in them.
Yeah.
And in fact, at one point I asked a question to some of the authors, and they thanked me for asking a question that was unusual, because they're still getting the because you get people who are new, who've never been to these things before, who want to know those answers, and that's absolutely fair enough. But the regulars are like, well, we've heard that answer 3 times. And it's not.
And I must admit, the one bit that does kill me in a seminar is usually at the end. You go, oh, okay, that was quite cool, a few good slides, they've chatted about a few bits, and they go, right, let's have some questions. And I always go, oh no, because it's always the bit for me that sort of drags on. where you do get repetitive questions that you've heard before.
Yeah, but there's not a lot they can do about that.
No, and people want to know these things.
Yeah,
so
and there's not a lot.
Asked.
There's only so much they should do about that as well. So you want to attract new people, you're going to have to expect that kind of thing. And we've got no problem with new people coming to these events at all.
No, what does make it exciting.
Indeed.
It was funny because a few of the painting people that were there, and they were purely there for the painting. So I remember thought to myself, wow, you guys aren't really getting much value out of this ticket. But I was like to go to a few seminars, try and get involved with the whole weekend. And so, yeah, I think there is always, you want to drag those new people into it. You want to get people excited about it.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome. We'll take a break there and we'll come back with some more views on the Heresy weekend. And joining me now is Michael, but we're not going to do the regular kind of book thing we've been doing. We're going to come back next episode probably with the first two Primarch's novels. But we are going to talk about the Heresy weekend because Michael's there and you've been to a few before, haven't you?
Yeah, that's right. Been to quite a few of these. This was good.
And you were on that Friday night, rather than maybe queuing up for the gaming stuff like the rest of us, you were out playing some Adeptus Titanicus.
I certainly was. A mate and I got in there sort of accidentally, a little early. We were going to go queue up for registration, poked our heads in the main seminar room, and there were James and Andy from Specialist Games. Come in. And I'm pretty sure we were the first two in. So we had a really nice chat with James, chatted through some of the rules, the data sheets, that sort of stuff, and got you saw me doing this. Got great fun getting up close and personal with some of the Titans. So much fun.
Yeah, were you and was it Howard? You had a Warlord between you, was that right?
No. We could have gone for the Warlord, but I thought let's go for something with slightly less pressure. We went for a Reaver.
Fair enough. I couldn't remember. I was too absorbed into Inferno at the time, keeping half an eye on it. From an outsider's point of view, I walked away from the game both nights because not being involved, it did take some time to go through the turns.
I mean, it's brand new. It really isn't 40k. I don't really remember Epic that well. I used to play it a long time ago, but this felt genuinely different. So James was having to go through quite a lot of the rules. Obviously, there were more than 5 people per side because there were I think 5 Titans per side, but a couple of them, like Howard and I and the mate Stu, dealt with 1 Titan between us. So there's quite a lot of people that him and Andy were having to go back and forth with. So yeah, I mean, it was so much fun to play. Perhaps as a spectator game, less so.
Yeah, not helped by the fact because the models were so large, only the people who owned the models were moving them, which is completely understandable and absolutely would be a rule I would put in as well.
Oh, goodness, yeah. There's no way I wanted to be moving those Titans around. I don't fancy risking £1,000 plus miniatures just in case I trip over or something horrible like that.
Yeah, excellent. So, as you say there, we had Warlords, we had Reavers, we had Warhounds on the table. No Knights on this one, I don't believe.
No, I think there had been a little thing on the email that went out to attendees of, bring your own Knights. And a couple of people did bring Titans. I think only one guy actually put his Titan on. Or Titans on. Right. I think someone else had brought one and for some reason it didn't get played. But I think there'd been maybe an expectation that perhaps people would bring Knights. I feel like maybe a little bit of a wider dissemination of that message would have helped. But as it is, I think in hindsight that probably worked out best because it was one fewer thing that we had to think about. Could stick to the Titans. Clearly Knights are going to be quite interesting in that game, but for me, there's quite a lot to learn, so I was happy, really, to not have them.
Yeah, from the very little I gather, they're going to work slightly differently as well. So, yeah, as you say, keeping it more compact so everyone knows roughly what's going on when their opponent talks about something.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, Knight's clearly going to come in numbers, in bulk, so that's going to be really cool to have them as essentially your infantry shield and cover and that sort of thing. I know it's not quite it, but it's the closest analogy.
I see them.
I think they're going to be really good fun. But yeah, for the purposes of the first ever game, quite happy to go with the Titans.
From the way I look at them, they look more like your fighter craft protecting your capital ship.
That's a good analogy, actually. Yeah.
So if you play Armada or Battlefleet Gothic, you've got these guys who are incredibly fast but weak, but can still do damage in the right circumstances. But from the little I gathered talking to James and Andy, and that's James Hewitt and Andy Hoare for those who aren't fully aware, Specialist Games manager and rules designer for Specialist Games.
And I didn't catch his surname, but there was a chap called Chris as well who's involved in the Specialist Games, so he was there joining in, helping out with that. Like I said, didn't catch his surname, but he was a really nice chap as well.
Oh, so he must be one of those new ones they've taken on, because as we said before, the Specialist Games have been taking on a lot of staff. I was talking to Andy there because of the success of Blood Bowl. Essentially, Blood Bowl had... Games Workshop took a risk reopening Specialist Games. They shut it down for a reason, because people weren't buying the models. Now you can say that's because there were no new rules or whatever, but financially, at that time, it wasn't making the money, that it needed to make. So reopening it, although it seems obvious, is still a risk, and the success of Blood Bowl has allowed them to then expand the team and everything else like that. So maybe Chris was one of those new guys.
Yeah, that sounds likely, and that's totally fair enough. I think Blood Bowl has been so phenomenally successful. I think it's hopefully it's given them confidence for the future games. Certainly, my impression of Adeptus Titanicus, both playing it and sitting in the seminar, looking at the standard of production behind it, I think this is going to do very well.
Yeah, I think it has already knocked on to Adeptus Titanicus. It seems the delay in getting it out is partly to make sure that they've got a good range of models with enough numbers there to satisfy need when it's released. Blood Bowl, people are selling the teams on because they ran through their first run so quickly. And there was talk that if they really put the effort into producing Adeptus Titanicus to the numbers they need to, it would impinge on the rest of Forge World's production for the next few months.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. That was the impression I got from them, certainly. I think it's a good idea to keep their cards a little closer to their chest this time round. And certainly they were talking about, I asked Andy about what they're working on next, and he was very keen to say, look, we are working on something, but we're going to reveal things with a shorter time frame than Blood Bowl gave. And makes total sense. In terms of the models, clearly there was an expectation previously that everything was going to come out in resin. And personally, that left me just wondering a little bit, thinking this could be a potentially expensive game to get into. Conversations now seem to be gearing towards some elements of it being done in plastic, and perhaps not decided, or maybe they just didn't want to talk about it in complete detail. Again, fair enough. But if, for example, the Warlords, clearly going to be the most popular Titan, and the Knights maybe were done in plastic, I think that would be a good balance. Reavers and Warhounds then in resin. I think that would work really nicely, give people options. Yeah,
and that will come down to the money men and everything else working together to try and make that work right. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. And for me, I don't mind a little bit more of a wait. There is perhaps a sense that it was due, that were plans in place. If you look at Black Library's coming soon section, there's a few Titan releases due for March. Perhaps there'd been a plan to put Titanicus out at that point. I don't mind. Get it right. Put it out at the right time for the game. I'll be happy.
Yeah, and this is where we've seen Forge World. I think I've said it loads of times now, but looking at that, as you say, that smaller kind of confirmation time, because we've seen almost every Horus Heresy book's been late when they've set a time. Adeptus Titanicus has been pushed back, and I know that in terms of their media, kind of going on media, they're looking at like a 3-month-ish pre-window of when they can start to look at talking to media. So I've had a word with Andy and James, and hopefully we're going to get them on the show to talk about it before release, because I'm really intrigued by this game. So
yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, Howard, Stu and I joined in. It was obviously there was quite a lot to learn because it is genuinely new mechanics. It was also a little bit weird because it was 40k scale, so inches were marked out on essentially a skipping rope tape measure,
Yes.
which was quite interesting. But once I sort of got my head around the scale and the sort of measurement equivalent, I found there's quite a bit of sort of scenery, which prompted some interesting choices around how you go about tackling the sort of strategy of it, especially as there were multiple players involved. But the mechanics of the game took a little while to just think, okay, well, I've got it in my head. But actually, they felt to me, I'm not the most experienced gamer, but they felt simple and sort of logical, intuitive. Yeah, got me there. It was quite cool having everything sort of big and hands-on. Obviously, it's not going to be quite like that when the final game comes out. But I think having these sort of data sheets and you interact with them. So as your Titan loses shields or takes reactor damage or whatever it might be, you move things around. You move little counters and stuff around on these sheets, and it's sort of all there in front of you. I think it's going to be an interesting game tactically, but ultimately for me, it's a game full of Titans. Titans are cool. I'm going to want to play it in 40k scale again, so it'll be weird when I play it in normal scale.
Yes.
But it was so much fun. Like I said, it was completely brand new, but I got really in the swing of it. And like Titan headshots or when someone's shields were down, people were getting vocal and we were all sort of joining in. And I think there was a great deal of excitement in there. And I think justified. And James did a great job comparing, GMing, whatever you want to call it, looking after the game. And I think everyone seemed really positive about it.
Yeah, excellent. I think if you play board games, you tend to understand board games. And this is essentially, although it's got miniatures in it, it's a similar process. You play a lot of miniatures games, you understand that kind of thing. Yeah. And if you can make a game that people who are less involved in that thing and still have it intuitive to them, then that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I'm not the greatest gamer. I get a bit confused with some of the sort of Fantasy Flight board games, the Horus Heresy game. It's all a bit, just give me something simple. I got stuck in straight away to this. It helped that I got a direct chat with James before anyone else turned up to sort of run Howard and me through what was going on. But I think once people start seeing it, I think it would be great if they did, some form of walkthrough in advance. I think they did that sort of thing with Blood Bowl, with the Deathwatch game and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Get some video content out there, get people interested in it and seeing what the mechanics are. I think there'll be a lot of gamers who will be really interested in those mechanics and things like the reactor dice or plasma dice, how that works, how losing shields work, and the orders and that sort of thing that layer tactical complexity on top of it. I think once people get to see that sort of stuff, and you'll see how easy it is to get into the simple stuff and how how that complexity stacks, I think people will start getting really interested in it.
Cool. Yeah. So I was noticing that you have degrees of turns and movement and the number of turns per distance moved.
Yeah, absolutely. So the different Titan classes, they sort of work as you'd expect. So Warhounds are much faster and more maneuverable than a Warlord, for example. So there were we had these data sheets that gave you things like how many shields you have and all that sort of stuff. But they gave you some basic stats in terms of how fast you can move, your standard rate, and if you bump a bit of the plasma from your reactor into movement, obviously there's a risk in doing that. And the same thing with turns. You get to make X number of 45-degree turns based on the class of Titan you're using. And then you can, I think that one you could increase as well, depending on whether you added a plasma dice into it.
Sure.
And yeah, that sort of fitted with my expectations. So the Warlord is a complete monster full of so many weapons, but it's not that maneuverable. So if you're slap bang in the middle of the battlefield with a Warlord and your opponent's got a ton of Warhounds, yeah, you're going to be able to do a lot of damage per Titan. But unless you use the split fire order, you can only fire everything at one Titan, right. In which case 3 or 4 Warhounds nipping around the back could be pretty dangerous.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Excuse me. And pushing that reactor becomes a risk as well going through the game?
Yeah, I can't quite remember the specifics of it. So essentially, you have sort of reactor points, and once it gets up to a certain level, that starts having, it's either at the beginning or the end of a turn, that starts having some implications. So you might think, okay, well, fine. When I'm moving, I'm going to put some plasma dice into this, and that moves my point up. Oh, it's only one. That's fine. But you might want to do the same thing with your shields. You might want to do the same thing with weapons. If you're firing a volcano cannon, if you're a Reaver, you can use a plasma dice to make it. I think it was called Shield Bane, so it does more damage. If you're a warlord, if you're firing a volcano cannon Bellicosa, you have to do that. So these start racking up, these plasma points that you're using, and then it's essentially, if your reactor gets in the red, you might start seeing some side effects.
Cool.
Which are obviously not desirable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And how did it feel as a Reaver walking around with the warlords facing you down?
Slightly intimidating with the warlord, because you're thinking it's probably got quite a lot of range, and it's got a lot of guns. The first couple of turns, I was pretty fearless, thinking, well, I don't think I'm going to as a Reaver, get killed in a single turn. I might have felt different as a Warhound. But once you start losing shields, it starts to get a little bit hairy. But it's definitely about the synergies. It's definitely about what the effect of your guns are. Have you got something that's got loads of dice, you roll lots of dice, and potentially strip a lot of shields down? Or then have you got like a volcano cannon that's a single shot but can do a serious amount of damage? Because once the shields are down, if you get a hit, I think you roll a dice for every hit and then add the strength. And the strength of a Bellicosa volcano cannon was like 10 or 12 or something. So if you get 12 plus whatever you roll on dice, plus I think there are some modifiers depending on how much damage your opponent's taken, you start getting some really big numbers. And then each location, so head, body, and legs, has a sort of set of statistics. So if your damage dice you roll under 13, say, it doesn't really do anything. 13 to 15 might be one level of damage, 16 up might be a higher level of damage. So you're thinking, okay, well, I want to use my turbo lasers, whatever they're called, because they've got a high rate of fire. Yeah. And we'll do that with the Reaver to strip the Titan shields, and then the Warlord, which has got the Bellicosa, you deliver the killing blow with that. So it's genuinely quite interesting about how they fit together. If you've just got two Warlords against an opponent who's got a more flexible maniple of Titans, I think you're potentially going to struggle, even though you've got a lot of hitting power. So I think there was a genuine difference between them. It didn't feel like the Warlord was the best and the Reaver was just not as good.
Sure.
I like that. I like that feel of tactical roles.
Excellent. In which case, what was I going to say? Trying to think now. Oh, yeah, you were talking about dice. And yes. What kind of dice were you using?
So there were standard D6. There was a D10, I think. D10, I've actually forgotten what that was used for. Maybe that was for scatter.
Sure, right, okay.
I might have got that wrong. And then there were these plasma dice, which had... I don't think they were the final ones, but they essentially had like reactor signs, the sort of toxic waste radiation sort of logo. So when you want to use one of your plasma points, whether it's moving faster or bumping up one of your weapons or your shields, you roll one of these dice, and the outcome of that dice roll determines what happens. So what you really want is I think there's one face on that 6-sided dice which is blank, and that means fine. You pump the plasma in, there's no side effects. But the other ones are multiple of these sort of reactor signs, and the more you get, the worse it is, because the more plasma points reactor points you move up. Right. So I think, maybe the Reaver had 5 reactor points, something like that. So you roll your plasma dice, and if you get 1 reactor point, then fine, you've only moved it 1. But you might get 3, and that means you're pretty close to your 5. If you then want to bump up your shields, you're getting even closer. So the dice, it's a really simple mechanic because it's randomizing the impact of using your reactor to power the Titan.
Sure, yeah. Excellent. We'll do it slightly out of order, but the Adeptus Titanicus seminar was on Sunday morning. Now, from the outside looking in, because I didn't attend, it appeared to be some old photos of like the origins more of Adeptus Titanicus than anything else. Is that fair to say?
That's pretty right. So Tony Cottrell was running the seminar, and he kept joking about they were filling space because they didn't really have much to talk about. I think that was a little bit of a red herring because I get the feeling that their book is pretty close to done, but they didn't want to show much of it, which is fair enough. So a lot of it was an entertaining walk through memory lane. So he showed the very first Titans and the progression and talked about some of the early photos where him and, I've forgotten the name of the other guy at Games Workshop, used to go and pester the top dog and get some cigars off him because he was the only one who could afford cigars, and they'd blow cigar smoke across these battlefields they'd made up to do the smoke effects in the photos.
Wow.
Pretty old school stuff. And that was really entertaining. Largely it was the history of Titans. There was a little bit, they were talking about some of the old White Dwarf articles that had pictures of Titans or Titan heraldry, and they were talking about how a couple of those were going to be in the book. So a couple of these Titans that have never really been, Titan Legions that have never really been developed, will be incorporated into the book, and there'll be a backstory and a history to them and that sort of thing. But yeah, most of it was that sort of stuff. Although they did, towards the end, bring up a few pages from the book, which you can find if you head over to the Warhammer community site.
Sure.
They included those on their coverage. So there's a really cool sort of line drawing of a Reaver with loads of stats. And apparently they worked out from the scale model or the 3D model or whatever it was exactly how much a Reaver Titan would weigh, but they filled it in units that we don't know what they mean.
Sure.
Which is really helpful. But it's a really cool picture. There was some really nice artwork. I'd actually chatted to guy, I think his name was Matt. I've just got the brochure in front of me. Let me just double check and find his name so we credit him properly.
Yes.
Matt Hill, really nice chap who's done quite a lot of the Forge World art for the Inferno book and quite a lot for Adeptus Titanicus. And he'd been showing me some of the early stages up to the final product and some of this artwork. And they had pictures of that in situ in the pages from the book. And it looks very much like the Forge World Heresy books, just with the overarching colour scheme being a sort of royal blue instead of the red.
Awesome. And Matt was working on a piece where, much like a computer game, where you're about to kind of get into your Titan, if you could look at it like that.
It did look like that, didn't it?
Yeah, he was on a gantry facing off against his Titan, looking down at him. A wonderful piece of artwork. So, yeah, that's cool. So I think probably leave Adeptus Titanicus there. As I say, I need to message those two, but as soon as we can, we'll get them on to talk about it.
Yeah, that'll be really good.
Yeah, because I, for one, because it's going to be released as a book, I believe they're still going to do a book and models rather than a box set.
Yes, although...
It could change.
That could change, because there was some scenery. So if you find pictures, or come and find me, and I've got some pictures of the game, and there were these huge sort of blocky tower blocks that I gather were taken from the proper scale ones and scaled up. And there was talk of scenery on sprues, so I took that to mean there would be a box. Whether or not I've jumped to conclusions, I don't know. But clearly there are some thoughts to scenery and, templates and measuring sticks and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and those buildings are very reminiscent of the original buildings.
Oh, very much so.
And can be kind of formulated in that way, whilst also being able to move. And just in case they future-proofed it, there are no plans, so this is not a rumour. There are currently no plans to do infantry on this scale for a game. Mm-hmm. However, they have looked at it, and for the scale it is, they future-proofed it so you can have 5 Space Marines on a circular base that fit on the squares on top of the buildings.
Oh, is that right? That's cool.
Yeah, but so that's not to say they're doing it. That's just thinking ahead. What if down the line? So, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent stuff. We'll go through the seminars a little bit. Both you and I, we didn't attend as many this year as we normally do.
No.
Can I ask why that was for you?
Bit of multiple things, really. Part of it was that there was some of the Black Library authors in attendance, and quite a lot of the seminars there'd be the Black Library guys signing in one room and the seminar going on the other. And I was just really keen on just having a chat.
Sure.
But there was an element as well of some of them. I was sort of thinking, well, I've been to similar seminars like this before. Like you said before, I've been to quite a lot of these. I've been to probably 3 out of the 5 Heresy ones, and I'm pretty sure all of the Black Library weekenders. I wouldn't say I'm getting seminar fatigue. I don't think that would be fair. But there's a little sense of, I'm paying to go to one of these events, and if there's a seminar that I feel like I've maybe got some of before, and I could go do something else that I could get more out of, then I'm inclined to do that. Where in the past I hadn't been to many of these weekenders, and I wanted to religiously get to as many seminars as possible. That's just slightly changing, and perhaps that's the subject matter, or perhaps it's just simply because I've been to quite a lot of them.
Sure, I pretty much said exactly the same with Neil earlier on the show. You tend to come to expect something from a seminar, and the questions asked, because there are new people coming all the time, they want their questions asked quite rightly, and I've heard a lot of them before. You know, every now and then that means you miss out on something, but that's, you take your choices, don't you? So
yeah, absolutely. And the nature of the Heresy Weekender is that it's more heavily sided towards the Forge World side of things than the Black Library.
Yeah.
And that's totally fair. If you look at the number of people who enter Golden Demon or who want to go and game, clearly the audience is more of a gaming audience than a reading audience, and that's fine. Quite a lot of the seminars were therefore focused on that. And much as I like the games, I don't currently play 30k, although I've got some of the models. I'm perhaps more inclined to go and chat to the authors. If there's something about some of the new models and that sort of stuff that are out, and I can go and look at them in the cabinets, and there's a seminar talking about those, well, that's cool, but I can go and have a look at them. So I went and spent time chatting to Neil Roberts or chatting to the authors.
Sure.
And that's just my inclination. I suspect, assuming the November Black Library Weekender happens, my decision-making on seminars may be slightly different.
Yeah, definitely. So you weren't at the Road to Terror seminar?
I think I might have been at that one. I think I was at that one, but not the next Talons of the Emperor.
Oh, sure. So I got some notes from James Harding, listener of the show, and mate of mine, and from what I've read here, nothing that I probably couldn't have guessed beforehand. We're looking at Horus approaching Terra, heading to Beta Garmin, where he's going to be tested. We're not going to see all the characters fully fleshed out by the end of the run of the main books, because there is that balance of timeline between finishing the Heresy and not boring people and concluding stuff, but they can always come back to the show, come back to the main show, as it were.
Yeah, I think that's right. Just on that note, so Jim Swallow actually mentioned this. He said, one of the things they want to make sure is that they don't accidentally leave that guy on a planet somewhere. But then someone else came back to say, yes, however, some of those guys will have to be left on the planet. So I think the key thing that they're trying to deal with is making sure they're wrapping up the major characters, the major arcs, and they're not embarrassing themselves by leaving something hanging that they really needed to fix. But, leaving things that they can come back to later. I think we have to remember that the more you hear people talk about this, the more there's a sense that the Heresy has become or is becoming a setting. And so there's perhaps a desire to leave things hanging so that they can go back and tell stories later if there's a demand for it. Yeah,
absolutely. Spin-off series for these guys, they're not the main characters.
Absolutely.
And we get, they talked about why Horus has to get to Terra. I think, to be honest, most people are aware that, he's got to, if he never faces his dad down, then he's never done it. As well as Terra being the symbolic seat of the, of man and everything else. I think, for me, I'm quite glad I didn't go to this one. It doesn't appear like I missed a huge amount personally.
No, it was interesting. It's always nice to hear the guys talking about this stuff, but there was nothing jaw-dropping or groundbreaking in it.
No, absolutely right. The second one, the Road to Terror. So, Talons of the Emperor.
I missed that one.
As you kind of think, a lot of talk about the Custodes and the Sisters of Silence and the technology they used as well. about you can only have so much of the greatest technology. So the custodians are, protectors of the emperor. They're going to have the lot. They're going to have these old age grav tanks. They're going to have specialized contemptors. They're going to have all of that stuff. The sisters are going to have the stuff they need to capture psychers. You're going to have Psi Titans because you're going to have Psi Titans. At the end of the day, I think almost all of that is going to be covered within reading the book.
Okay, cool.
So there's, from what I gather, from what you see in things like The Master of Mankind, and then we're probably going to see a little bit more of these guys around and about, and then Inferno as well. You're going to get a lot of what they talked about. We already know that Custodes are very different from Space Marines.
Yeah.
That's been hammered home. That they fight differently, they think differently, they've got a completely different role. They're made differently, these. So, a little bit of talk about what is and isn't planned. The problem with those kind of questions is Forge will change their mind, or flat out just refuse to acknowledge stuff because of the expectation and everything that goes with it.
Fair enough.
So, that's all part of the fun. And then we moved on to Black Library Preview. Did you go to that?
Surprisingly enough, I did.
Okay. What did we see here? Oh, this was one of the appeared to be less well organised seminars.
Yeah, there was an element of that. So previous years, the Coming Soon have contained all sorts of things. Black Library Live last year, there was a whole raft of things discussed. This time round, obviously it's purely focused on the Heresy, so that was one element. But there was, with Laurie Golding having left, he has tended to compare these sessions and been able to lead them. Dan Harden from White Dwarf compared it, and he's really nice. Seems like a really nice chap. But doesn't work for Black Library. There wasn't a clear sort of leadership on the seminar.
I also heard, I don't know how true it is, it might have been him that he was asked to do it with not a lot of notice.
Oh, is that right? Fair enough.
I've heard that on the grapevine, so I can't confirm that, but that's what I've heard. And if that's the case, then it's completely understandable.
Yeah, I think that's right. He did a perfectly good job in terms of controlling it, but there was... Normally you have someone sort of giving a bit of context, and obviously there were things announced by authors who were not in the room. So it was a little bit of, they're not here, so we're going to move on. Well, you couldn't do anything else because there wasn't an editor there to talk about what's coming. And the other guys, presumably, they're freelance. So they're not working on this other book, so they can't talk too much about it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would have been nicer if we could have got a bit more about those. Did feel a touch disorganised. Sort of don't mind that too much. Essentially, what the seminar was doing was telling us what's going to be released, like literally all of the Heresy releases for audio, dramas, and books for the majority of the year. I think up until October. So the first couple were things which we already knew about. So we already know Garrow. Garrow was on sale and has been talked about for ages. So that's a bind up of all of the Garrow stories, audio and prose, into a book.
20,000 more words than you got previously, just to turn those audios into prose, pretty much, and to just smoothly fit them in. So it's disappointing we didn't get the full-length kind of flowing story, but work has gone into that.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds like quite a lot of work as well. So that was good. I've got that on my shelf, looking forward to reading. There was next up is the Binary Succession. So that's due out in March. Which was on sale as well. Pretty much the only genuine early release that was there. So that's an audio drama by David Annandale, which has got an extremely cool cover of an Imperator Titan towering over the Imperial Palace.
Have you listened to yours yet?
I have not yet. So I was just thinking about that today. I'm going to try and listen to it soon. I remember hearing people talking about it at Black Library Live, where it was pitched as Brexit with Titans.
I've listened to it. I listened to it the other day. Much like we had some little bits in The Beast Arises, actually.
Yep.
They've dealt with some aspects that have a huge impact on the Imperium in this in that audio. And it's all... There's quite a few characters in it, and there's quite a bit of, there's a little bit of politicking, because it's a 70-minute audio, so it's not hugely long, but I quite enjoyed it, yeah. And the way that they introduced just, their politicking and their postulating with their politic was most entertaining. I quite enjoyed it.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to that one. So that takes us to March. April then is Shattered Legions, which is a collection of, I think it's all of the stories that were in Meduson, as well as Graham McNeil's The Seventh Serpent. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, the Alpha Legion, Shattered Legions novella. So that's stuff that anyone who's been following closely will probably have read, barring maybe the odd story. Essentially, I think that's probably drawing a line for the most part under that Shattered Legions arc. I don't suppose we'll get a huge amount more of that.
No, maybe just appearing on the fringes of other books.
Yeah, I think so. So that's April, along with Perturabo, which is by Guy Haley. So that's book 4 of the Primarch series?
Yes, that's correct.
Perturabo, Hammer of Olympia.
An origin story, an actual origin story.
Yeah. Now, I haven't read Magnus, but I'm assuming Magnus wasn't an origin story.
Very much no.
So in that case, 4 books in, and we've got our first origin, which I think is quite cool, because I wouldn't have wanted 18 origin stories. Bit boring.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a couple of them being, but not necessarily all of them. I caught a little bit of a reading of Guy, reading from that book, and I think there was another reading in a different seminar that I didn't make. And it's sounding pretty cool so far. I'm hearing people talking about it, saying it's going to be really good. So looking forward to that one. So that makes Shattered Legions and Perturabo, I think, April. Lorgar, Bearer of the Word, is then book 5 in the Primarchs. That's by Gav Thorpe.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting, Gav writing that, I think.
Yeah,
Gav,
I agree.
Regularly you hear that Gav, in these meetings, like people like Aaron will say that Gav knows the most. Like Gav is just...
I've heard that.
Just, he must have lay in a bathtub of 40k lore and just absorbed it. So seeing his take on someone like Lorgar would be really cool, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's definitely going to be interesting. It also has an incredibly cool cover. I don't know if you've seen that. It just looks brilliant.
Oh, yes.
It's my favourite of the covers so far. I can't quite remember. I'm starting to lose track of when some of these due out. But that's I don't know, maybe May or June. Echoes of Revelation. That's an audio drama collection. So if anyone's listened to the Advent Calendar audios, you've listened to all 3 of these. So it's the Soul Severed, Valerius, and I forgot Perpetual. So Dan Abnett, Gav, and Chris Raitt. So that's a collection of those 3 audios, and it has basically Eidolon looking like Eddie the Ed from Iron Maiden on the front. His armour all melty and gross. So if you haven't listened to those, they're cool, they're good, they're worth listening to. That will be a sort of 10 quid, 12 quid collection of the 3 of those. So we've had echoes of Imperium, and there was echoes of something else. I forgot what the first one was. So it's sort of their themed little collections in audio. Yeah. Sorry, you going to say something there?
No, just that's cool that they're linking it through.
Yeah, I think it's quite nice. But the next audio drama I am particularly interested in, and that's Dark Compliance by John French. So this presumably is going to tie in a little bit to his previous audio drama War Master, which was very short but really nice. And it's essentially sort of exploring how Horus is reconquering worlds. So the whole Dark Compliance idea, how he's bringing them over to compliance, but in his name instead of the Emperor's name. And it's sort of going to be, the way I imagine it from what they've described is an emissary is sent to a world currently loyal to the Imperium, asking them if they'd like to transfer their allegiance to Horus, and when they say no, said emissary tells a story that's going to scare them into compliance. And he's telling the story of Horus conquering a world in a day.
Yeah.
which sounds pretty cool. And if you've read Talon Ironclad, so the longer of the two Talon novellas, short novels, then the emissary in that, the Sons of Horus emissary who's sent to Talon, Argonis, is going to be the main character in Dark Compliance.
Yeah, that's cool.
Argonis was a really nice character. Didn't get a huge amount of time in it, but was really interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing a bit more of him. That I've got written down as being July, so that's not too far off.
No.
And that also has an awesome cover of Horus sort of grasping a hololith planet in his claw, and it just looks so cool.
Excuse me, that was some sprues falling on the floor.
Easily done.
Not much space around me. Some shattered. Yeah, there we go. Carried on. That artwork, Neil had it with him. It is fantastically grim.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
As was the artwork for Talon, so the expected collection of John's Talon work. Now, I'm assuming this isn't going to be every Talon story, because the Eagle's Talon and... I forgot what it's called. The audio that came in a collection with that.
Can't remember the name of it at all.
Iron Corpses, I think.
That's the one, yeah.
They've been released in prose in Eye of Terror, I think,
right.
Previous anthology. So I'm assuming they won't be in it, but I think all the rest. So it's going to include Talon, Executioner, and Ironclad, then Talon Witness and Talon Siren short stories.
Yep.
Maybe Black Oculus. Well, I can't remember if that's been included in one before. But essentially, it's going to be the collected Talon story. Yeah, which for anyone who hasn't splashed out on the novellas, this is going to be brilliant because it's an amazing story. It's really nicely put together. And that also has some pretty cool artwork. Sort of the grim skies of Talon with tanks everywhere and then this enormous Titan looming in the backdrop.
The book that kind of confirmed that at some point I will do an Iron Warriors army.
Fair enough.
Yeah, gits. It's going to be good for a lot of people, that one. And yeah, the cover again is fantastic. Neil was saying that when he was doing the tank on the front of it, he wanted to make the coolest looking like Airfix kit he could, because that's what he used to make when he was younger. And so it was cool. I'm going to make it like that with the similar kind of like markings on it and everything, and then weather it up and all that jazz. Yeah, no, it does look fantastic. But then it's Neil. It will do.
Yeah, they always do, don't they?
Yeah.
The last two that were talked about. So obviously Lorgar, nothing was really said of it because Gav was not there. Also the same for the last two. But I'm really excited about these. So September is going to be Black Shield, The False War by Josh Reynolds. So that's an audio drama featuring Black Shields. And he has on Twitter talked about the name of the Black Shield. I had to Google it. It's in, I think, book 6. Right. I think he's a World Eater. I did write it down, but I haven't got it to hand.
Yeah. I can't remember his name, but I know the one, I think. Yep.
So you can look it up on Lexicadum or whatever, and there's a little bit about that guy, or check out Retribution. Is that book 6? Something like that. And that's Josh's first contribution to the Heresy, and in my opinion, long awaited. I think Josh's work's been really good. Things like Primogenitor, really good. So I'm very much looking forward to this. So that's September, and then October is book 6, I think, now of Primarchs, which is Fulgrim.
Yeah.
So I think it's Fulgrim the Phoenician Blade or the Palatine Blade, something like that. I think that's the full title. The cover was Fulgrim looking very Fulgrim-y, with a sort of broken bridge behind him and sort of contrails of fighter craft in the sky. Again, you can see it on the Warhammer community website. It's looking pretty cool. Again, nothing really was said about it. I'm sure Josh will talk about that in due course as he's allowed to. But I'm really excited. I think Josh doing Fulgrim, we can clearly see he's got under the skin of the Emperor's Children in his Fabius Bile stuff. Obviously, this is Great Crusade. I'm assuming Great Crusade Fulgrim, so it's a long way off where they get. But I think he's going to do a really good job with that. I think he's an interesting guy to choose. And that then means we know what the first 5 are definitely going to be, 5, 6. We also know that Ferrus Manus is being worked on, or I think has been finished, perhaps, by David Geimer. So we've got quite a few of these talked about so far.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the plan was 3 years, I think, for all of them.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And we've had 3, so in the 3/4 of the year that they were announced. So they've got to come out fairly rapidly.
Yeah, definitely. And what's really nice is that it's pretty much dead on 3 months for the non-limited edition to come out. So the Lehman Russ one came out not long ago, the standard edition, and Magnus is due out in the next couple of months. So, I mean, I'm not splashing out on the limited editions for these ones, but it means you're not waiting 6, 9, 12 months. They're coming out pretty quick, so people can stay on top of the series, which I think is a nice touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we'll do is we'll try and cover them, I think, in 2s. So every 6 months we'll try and have the latest 2 done, which we can talk about, because they are cool. Russ and Gilliman divides people a lot. Russ I thoroughly enjoyed. I quite like Gilliman as well, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like both of them. I just finished Russ a couple of days ago. Great books. Really good start to the series. I've heard good things about Magnus. So yeah, I'm really pleased with these so far. We talked to our heart's content about would you rather have a full-length book and should they be in limited editions and all that sort of stuff. But as long as they're good stories, I'm happy.
Yeah, and I think I'm not 100% sure what everyone is really looking for from these books, because they are there to highlight the character almost of the Primarch.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the situations you'd see them in normally. But,
no, and I think that's really interesting. There's been a sense that some of the Primarchs have had their moment in the spotlight in the main Heresy series, and others haven't quite had that. And so, everyone will have had a book about them by the end, and then we can go back and see stories about them in different aspects. So those who haven't had origin stories by the end, maybe we'll get them. Those who haven't had Great Crusade stories, maybe they'll get them. I think once these 18 are out, there'll be a clearer picture of what people's desire is to learn more about the different Primarchs, and Black Library will be able to judge it from that.
Yeah, definitely. That was about it, wasn't it? We know we're getting Crimson King this year.
Yes. Yeah, the cover, Neil had the cover of that as well. So that can't be too far off.
Well,
so,
Graham said summer at some point.
Yeah, I think June.
Yeah. So
personally.
Hopefully. Can't wait.
Yeah, likewise.
It's a muchly anticipated book. There's a lot of work to do in that book. And it'll probably be a tome, knowing Graham.
Knowing Graham, I think that's probably right. Just had a quick look through the Weekender programme, because there was an excerpt. It just says available soon.
Sure.
But, for anyone who didn't go, that excerpt, if you've read the Ahriman series, that excerpt's very interesting, because as well as Ahriman and is Ammon in it? Certainly Ahriman we've seen in things like Thousand Sons, but this also includes Hathor Mat, Sanact, Lucius, and Menkora, how do you say that? So these are characters who've come up and became quite important in the Ahriman series. So it's quite cool, because Graham sort of defined Ahriman in 30k. John then took it, wrote his trilogy to define Ahriman and some of these other characters from the Thousand Sons in somewhere between 30 and 40k, and that's now fed back into Graham's work on the Thousand Sons in 30k. That's cool.
Sure. It might as well be worth saying here now, you can buy the collected Ahriman set, can't you?
You can. So, I don't think you can. I think it's sold out.
Oh, is it sold out now? Okay.
You could. There were some available at the Weekender, so I think they tend to keep a few back. So if you're able to trip down to Nottingham, you might be able to pick a set up. I have one on my shelf, and it is rather beautiful. So it's the three novels, not including the short story collection, in beautiful hardback box sets. But there is an paperback omnibus coming in the next couple of months, I think. I had a quick chat to John about that at the Weekender, because he said he had to write 4 extra author forewords or afterwards, because one for each of the hardbacks, and then a separate one for the omnibus, and say something different in them all. So if you haven't read the Ahriman books, why not? But get down to Nottingham if you can, or hold out for the omnibus, because it's so worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to reboot them. I haven't got enough room for more books, so
fair enough.
That's my thing.
It doesn't matter, get hold of them. I read Exile in ebook when it first came out. They're just such good stories, and if you're able to read from the start, check out John's website or have a look at mine, the blog, because there's a reading order that John has suggested of where you should fit the short stories in amongst the novels, because there's quite a lot of short stories that really add little bits of extra character in, and are definitely worth doing it. So check it out in order. It's going to be a really fun experience to get to read that.
Brilliant stuff. Okie dokie. That was New Model Seminar is a New Model Seminar, and everyone's seen the pictures. So we won't really go into that. And the evening entertainment, you didn't do the quiz, did you?
No, so mates and I played Gore Chosen in the bar, which was great.
And I came and got slaughtered in that a little bit later. The quiz, whilst being fun, was far too easy, as was the fear when Laurie's not in charge. We got to that point now where he hasn't left quizzes laying around for people to do, and it's hard. Maybe it's a hard thing to understand just how much people know. I'm sat around that table, and someone comes up with an answer for something I've never heard of in the Heresy. That's the nature of the beast. But it was fun. Sat around a table. I'm over the plasticine and Lego thing now.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are. A good, solid quiz could be good fun whilst still being, hard and semi-serious, as it were. But yeah, it was entertaining enough. And then Saturday in the bar till silly o'clock is kind of standard, really.
Yeah, pretty much. Although Graham McNeil not being there meant the bar was slightly less boozy than usual.
Yeah, and
he's a bit of a fiend in those evenings.
Bless him.
In a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. And the authors went home fairly early. A lot, not only some of them were back the next day and various other things. Some of the staff went home early as well. It did seem to be a lot lighter on the people who were there. Yeah,
I agree. There was a general sense in the evenings that, arguably Friday, but certainly Saturday, that it just wasn't quite the buzz. I didn't mind that too much. So mates, you came and joined us, played some games. I almost think if you're going to do a quiz and that sort of thing, like if you're a games company, maybe you could do something better than a quiz. Maybe there could have been some participation games. Maybe they could have had Calth and Prospero going.
Yeah, that would be really good, actually.
I thought this last year or the year before, a previous one, I forget, where there was nothing. It must have been last year, I think, because Calth had just come out. And you think, it can't cost that much for a set of the tiles. Put half a dozen sets of the boards out, bring your own miniatures, kick off, go and have a few games of Calth, or do the same thing this year and play a few games of Prospero. Everyone's got Space Marines. Plenty of people got Custodies and Sisters. Bring them along. Games Workshop could provide the boards and the dice and that sort of stuff. You've got a big seminar room, using it for the quiz. Why don't you use it for some games because you're a games company? I sort of think maybe next year that could be something to work on, or provide something along those lines to be carrying on in the bar afterwards. Try and get a buzz. Try and get people involved, because it's only going to help.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not something I thought about, to be honest, but it makes complete sense. Yes, they do have the games room where some people were playing 30k, and because of the Rust, because of Rust being released, I saw a few challenges with Rust out there. So just who Rust could kill. Turns out it's pretty much everybody. But yeah, as you say, it wouldn't hurt them, and they've got the boards in. They're going to have these boards. They take them to places. They show them off.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, it could be something for next year.
Yeah, I hope so.
But at the end of the day, you're still sat in the bar, you're still meeting your mates and stuff. But
yeah, definitely.
I just think almost every previous year has been better. Black Library have done the pitch factor before. It'd be interesting to see if they bring that back again.
Yeah, I'd almost be surprised if they do, because the last year that they did the weekend, they sort of did a pitch factor, but slightly sort of half did it, because it was... Yeah, you can pitch, but in previous years you actually got the opportunity to pitch for a published story. The last one was a little bit taken less seriously, and they were very clear of, you're not going to get anything out of this. And,
just
a lot of people who go to these weekenders want to do that.
Yeah.
So I think if you're going to do it, you should do it. Otherwise, find something else. But what they've done really well in the Black Library ones is things like the author coffee morning on a Sunday, where you get round tables. So they'll get a load of chairs in these circles, and the authors mingle, and you just have half an hour chatting to a bunch of them. That sort of thing makes it a bit more collaborative, makes it feel like there's a bit more of a community there. I think that works really well.
They did it last year at the Heresy one.
They do the Heresy? I don't remember
because
that.
I'm 99% sure, because I remember Alan Bly's table being full.
I can imagine.
I'm pretty sure they did. I could be getting confused, but I sat with John talking about stuff. I definitely had my recording gear on me. Don't know how much of it. But, we didn't have that, which was a bit of a disappointment. But, again, it added something for not a huge amount of effort, because it was relaxed.
Yeah.
Whether it's... And it's quite good, actually, because people like John, he's very good dealing with people and make sure that... I mean, we had someone who wanted to try and monopolise that time with him. And he kind of, was good at making sure that other people got their say.
Yeah, John's very good at that. I'd argue that John would have made a really good compere at some of these seminars. He may not want to do it, but I think he would be very good at it.
Tough, we'll make him do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the authors and stuff, I got a slight sense that things maybe weren't quite as well organised with the Black Library authors as it was with some of the Forge World stuff. Just from sort of observing, really, and listening. There were a couple of sessions booked in on the seminar plan, or the day plan, for things like audio dramas. And I popped onto one, and there were just authors there chatting. There didn't seem to be someone there going, right, at this point, you're going to listen to an audio drama, or we're going to give you the chance to talk to some of the producers and that sort of thing, which I was perhaps hoping there would have been. So I think under those circumstances, it might have been tricky to persuade the authors to come and get involved and come early and stay late. So I think for the Black Library one, it's all about the authors. So it really needs to be organised with a view to looking after them, getting things organised, making sure they know what they're doing, bringing stuff where they're going to be where, and that sort of thing. Which they did really well with the first couple of Black Library weekenders, and maybe tailed off a little bit. So hopefully they'll pick back some of the things they used to do.
Sure. Yeah. So moving on from that, as I say, we were going to skip the Adeptus Titanicus
we sort of covered that.
Yeah, I mean, I found a few more bits on the notes here, but it's general stuff. Things like they're looking at being able to magnetise weapons and things like the Ursa's claws and
the magnetising weapons bit was interesting, actually. They've modelled them so that there are little sort of circle areas specifically for you to put a magnet in. So apparently they're legally not allowed to sell the magnets, but they've done everything they possibly can to make it easy for those of us who do want to magnetise, which is really cool.
That's something that's been going on in 40k for a while now. They've been leaving little recessed places for magnets and things like that, which is really cool. Really cool. The one thing I did see here was the rulebook is supposed to fit with this. GW Prime have done with Age of Sigmar with this 3 ways to play, which I can see coming into 40k. And before they said it was a new system of open narrative and matched play scenarios. Right. So match play being, I hate to say it, match play being competitive, but it's not. Match play is having a structure where two people who don't know each other can have an even-ish battle.
Yeah, that's right. And it lends itself to competitive play if you wish to do that. But yeah, I mean, match play is basically just points, really, because the open play is bring whatever you've got, and it means, if someone's got more than another person. In fact, I think they're going to do, I can't remember what they said, that there are going to be
balancing methods.
I was trying to think of a good way of saying it, that sort of thing. So if you are massively outpointed, you'll get extra benefits to try and even it up a little bit. But if it was me, if that's a situation, you just turn it into a narrative, you turn it into a story.
Yeah.
And James was talking loads about how he thinks it's really cinematic, and he's totally right. You've got massive, giant sort of robots marching through cities. It can't help but be cinematic. So I actually think you're sort of really competitive players might prefer to stick with 40k and Heresy, because I sort of feel like this maybe will lend itself more to the gamers who want to just game with their mates and have a really good time and tell stories with it.
There will always be competitive gamers in every game.
Yeah, totally.
You never get away with it.
Maybe it's just my inclination, but I sort of feel like this will maybe be less inclined towards that. But time will tell.
Yeah, excellent stuff. And then we had the Art of the Heresy. Did you attend that one?
No, I didn't, because to be honest, I'd been chatting to Neil quite a lot of the weekend, and I'd been looking through his portfolio and asking him loads of questions.
Yeah, seen the 2 or 3 prints he brought with him, which are the 2 or 3 prints that they showed.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Essentially, that's why I didn't go, and again was proved right. So this is something where if you are on the pulse of what is going on at Black Library, at GW, and it's not hard to be, you just have to look at their community site, you have to look at their website. It's not difficult, but I could easily identify what I was going to see. I could guess most of the questions because they're usually the same kind of things again. But they do have people like, who was in this one? Rachel, Dominic, Neil and Mark. So they did have a little drawing competition whilst they were in the seminar.
So I gather.
Which is quite cool.
Actually, Rachel and Dominic, I've seen at a previous weekend, and they're really cool, and it's really interesting to see their working progress, process, I should say, for the Forge World art. That's quite different to the sort of covers. But actually, the best of the art seminars I've ever been to, we chatted about this briefly a while ago, was at Black Library Live, where different Rachel, who's the sort of art commissioning editor, I don't know what her title is, talked us through how she commissions things, how she chooses which artists, walked us through some work in progress things. That was really good. So I'm hoping that we'll see more of that at future art seminars, because really, that's probably more interesting than just showing us pictures.
Yeah, a bit of the balance of doing a little bit of that and then showing that. And you don't mind seeing, like, the progress of a character piece or things like that. But again, you start to understand the process. Even as a non-artist, I've seen the process enough times to have an idea of how it works. But, what can you do? As I say, the problem is you've always got new people at these things, and they want to know the basics, and that's understandable, and they should be catering to that.
Oh, so, definitely. Agree.
So, it's a first world problem, really. But
that's true.
Excellent. The Primarchs.
No, interestingly, I missed this one as well. This was essentially because I wasn't feeling very well. So a mate and I just sort of sat and had a bit of a quiet natter in the bar. A couple of mates went to it, and it sounded quite interesting, but I don't have any notes from that one.
Yeah, I didn't attend. And I haven't really heard a lot about it. So, I mean, I know that Guy, James, Gav and Chris are all pretty good. They can all talk. So I'm sure there was some interesting stuff in there. But
yeah, definitely. And I think Guy did a reading to the whole room. The reading he did earlier was to not a huge number of people. So this one, I think, will have been really cool for anyone who was there to get a sense of what the Perturabo book's going to be like. So that was probably a perk over and above what you might have expected. Yeah,
absolutely. And then the final one was Angelus, Book 8. And you skipped this one as well, did you?
No, I went to that one.
You were in this one.
Largely because I wanted to see if there was a picture of Magnus coming.
Yeah, they always get you by holding off the picture of Magnus till the end. Yep, so we're seeing Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Night Lords, Dark Mechanicum and Demons. In this book, we're talking Cygnus Prime for the Blood Angels and Demons, Thramas for Dark Angels, Night Lords, and then the Prosecution of Sarum, the Siege of Baal, and the Passage of the Angel of Death, which no one seems to know what that is.
All quite interesting sounding little concepts, though.
Definitely. And no white scars because they just don't fit. There's a lot going on in that already, and to force white scars in there wouldn't really fit.
No.
We're looking at Cygnus was quite a quick battle, but they're looking at utilising the current line of demons because demons don't change.
Which is totally fair enough.
Absolutely, but introducing some named demons and some extra bits that don't contradict 40k that fit in, which is good because they'll probably move over to 40k as well.
Yeah, probably.
Which is sensible. And there's, they're very early stages of this, so they weren't going to reveal too much at the end of the day. There was, the Dark Mechanicum is going to be very much a Dark Mechanicum. There were some brilliant stories about a Forge World, I can't remember the name of it, who were doing some naughty things before Horus fell.
Yeah.
So deep in the depths, there were some non-standard constructs that were being hidden, and then Horus fell, and all of a sudden they could do what they want.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's a really interesting concept, because we're going to see an interesting middle ground between Mechanicum and the gross demon engines of 40k. I mean, I don't think we should expect Forge Fiends and Soul Grinders and that sort of stuff, because it's so far removed. They're dabbling still, aren't they? They're figuring out what they can do.
Yeah.
And that means we could get some mad stuff. I really hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in the questions and answers, Tony, I kind of take this statement with a little bit of a pinch of salt, was looking at the series being between 15 and 20 books long.
Yeah, that's a lot of money at 80 quid a book.
It is. Well, 6 books in. 7 books in, sorry. I think, when I say a pinch of salt, I mean, he's just put a number out there. So it's very easy for people to say there are going to be between 15 and 20 books. It's like there might not be. It all depends how much they fit in each book or how quickly they move on. But there's a lot of stuff still to do. We've got the White Scar stuff put in. We've got Beta Garmin. We've got Moloch. That's a huge battle. We've got Mars. We've got, this is all before we get to Terra. Yeah. We've got all this stuff going on.
I think what Tony's saying is, look, we know there's loads of stuff to come. We're not going to rush this. Don't worry. We're not going to get it, squeeze out 3 books and there you go, you're done. They're going to take their time. And to me, that means that Forge World are going to keep doing Heresy stuff quite a long time after Black Library have finished the initial run of novels, because there's talk of the novels being 2-3 years out from the end, sort of thing, by the time people have finished writing.
I wouldn't be surprised if 3 years saw the end of it.
Yeah. So I think people have been talking about, hold on to your hats, hold on to your wallets, don't, be careful what you ask for. All this sort of stuff has been. All these sort of phrases have come out in the last year or so. I think we're starting to see that, which means that Black Library will get to the Siege of Terror a hell of a lot quicker than Forge World. So if you're a gamer, many more years of fun stuff to come.
Yeah. The Prosecution of Sarum. Sarum is that Forge World. So that's the one. Just looking through the notes. There's a lot to do. Terror can't be one book, I wouldn't have thought, because Isfan 5 was more than one book. So, it makes sense. But we're looking at revisiting Legions as well, because, the Death Guard, the Thousand Sons, the World Eaters, and Emperor's Children are different by the time we get to things, and the Sons of Horus as well. So, those are the obvious ones. And the Loyalist Legions change as well. They adapt. They have to look different by the end of the Heresy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot that's got to come. Obviously, the White Scars haven't had anything. There's got to be changes for things like the Ultramarines. There's got to be changes for Space Wolves. Big changes for Space Wolves, considering how badly they're going to get kicked at one point.
More than one point. They repeatedly get kicked.
So there's a ton of cool stuff. And hopefully they don't... I don't think they're going to go, right, well, we've got to have a book for every battle. But there's a lot of scope for cool stuff.
There's some major battles and there's some major things that need to be done. Things like the Dark Angels have their 6 wings, and they can't put that all into one book. So if they are going to do that, then that has to be pushed across more than one book. We're not going to get Caliban, because the issues on Caliban are actually post-Heresy. Yep. So you're probably not going to get a lot of Luther and Caliban now. That might change if something happens in the to slide him slightly more into the story, but he's not doing a lot. No. But we will see details on the Rangdan Xenocide, which everyone really loses their freak over. Bless them. Because the Dark Angels are the First Legion, there are aspects of that. The Blood Angels, be interesting to see how they handle them in 30k, because there's such a strong dynamic in 40k. And unlike the Wolves, where they become more wolfy, the Blood Angels have, Sanguinus' death is such a major part of what the Blood Angels become in 40k.
Yeah, totally.
So, that's going to be really interesting. And then the biggest kind of thing was 40k. What are we going to do if we get a new rule set? I managed to ask the question, and the response was they don't want to have loads of different rule sets across the company, which I understand. I mean, and so Heresy is a 40k supplement. Now, that you can tell that is the party line. Whether there's anything underneath that, because sometimes you get these statements and 6 months later the opposite happens because at that time that's the party line.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're not going to go and do their own huge FAQ because, again, you've got a GW 40k FAQ. What they might do is make specific units work slightly differently to get around the FAQ. But we'll see.
I think pinch of salt again with Tony's comment there. You know, he was never going to come out, even if the plan was to have 30k using current edition of 40k and then a new 40k. He was never going to confirm that. So
no,
it's interesting to see his response, but only time will tell.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it just leads to things like, you know, I'm working on my own FAQ document because I run events. So I kind of need, I get asked certain things all the time. I'm going to need it. Mine's going to be like, some of the podcasts are going to do a very definitive kind of FAQ, I'm sure. Mine's going to be like the common sense FAQ.
Fair enough.
If you like, it's going to be like, you know, the classic one is the drop assault rule, having nothing on the table. Well, just the way the rule's written in the Heresy book is that if you've got nothing on the table, you lose. It's like, it's obviously not planned to be that way. Right, before you start the game, you've lost because none of your drop pods are on the table. I mean, that's just silly. So, you know, mine's going to just be like, there's no point in asking that question. But yeah, and in this game, we've always had, you know, the community has always had to do that themselves anyway. It's not designed to be a hard and fast rule set. They're designed to be, you should be able to play the game, is what they want. You know, there's a balance in how much they answer. But
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. There's lots of stuff in the latest book. I've seen some crazy questions being asked. It's like, can you do this according to the book? Just no. That's just not right. But bless them. So yeah, and that was the end of the weekend. Barring we've talked with Neil about or we will talk with Neil at the end of the episode about Golden Demon. But
congratulations to Neil.
Yeah, a little bit of a spoiler going forwards there.
I think we all knew he was going to do well.
Yeah. He would have been off the show had he not. It was part of the deal.
Fair enough.
But yeah, your overall thoughts on this weekend?
I thoroughly enjoyed it. For me, the Adeptus Titanicus game was a massive highlight, and it was really before the weekend or even started. It was so much fun. Massive props to the Specialist Games team. They did a great job with that. I think there were organisational issues which were dealt with better this time around. Things like having the early access and all that sort of stuff was really good. Could have been better organised with some of the seminars and that sort of thing. But great to see the usual people. Lovely to chat to all the authors and that sort of thing. Very much enjoyed it. Looking forward to the Black Library weekend, though.
Yeah, I mean, I've probably said this at the end of the first bit, but I'm going to go to the next one in a slightly different frame of mind. Because, if I can get a ticket. Because by the sixth one, you know, I'm not going as much for the seminars as I was with the first and second one.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, so you have to change your attitude and your expectations and everything like that. Otherwise, you find yourself thinking, why is it not as good? You know, it's very much down to how you approach these events as much as anything else. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, if you just spend the whole time sitting in the bar in your hotel room, it's a complete waste of money. You've got to engage in some way. But the thing that the Forge World, the Horus Heresy one does arguably better than the Black Library one is having all these cool extra things. I mean, you could happily spend the 2 days, if you're a hobbyist or a painter, talking to the Forge World guys in their little demonstrations or talking to the heavy metal painters. There's so much you can get out of that.
Yeah.
You know, I spent quite a long time talking to the artists and the authors, and it's super interesting, really beneficial. And arguably, am I happy to have paid that much money purely to have talked to them? Well, probably, actually. So, you know, I picked and chose the seminars I was particularly interested in, enjoyed those. So, yeah, I mean, I'll probably go to the next Heresy one. There were some conversations around maybe it might be a slightly different format, that sort of thing. You know?
Yes, yeah, there was some stuff that I was asked a couple of questions, and I was like, "Oh, were they thinking of changing it?" At some point, Black Library are going to be less involved with the Horus Heresy than they are now.
Yep.
So I could see down the line Black Library coming away from it a little bit, and it becoming.
Yeah.
My worry then is it becomes a Forge World weekender, because actually, if we've only got a 3-month kind of preview window, how much can they show? So therefore, it in my mind, like kind of logically working through it, and it could be completely wrong, but if they take that space away, they've got to fill it with something. If they can only show 3 months of something, then maybe they bring something else, and all of a sudden you've got specialist games turning up. At that point, it becomes a Forge World weekender, so you get that, and then you've got groups of Heresy fans, Blood Bowl fans, whatever. And are they mixing as much? That's a long way down the line, but that's a potential, I suppose.
It is. But the other thing, the flip side of that, if you kept it Heresy, obviously there's less you can talk about in terms of new releases. But I mean, there's a sort of community aspect that you could get more involved in. And the thing that occasionally I've seen done really well at the Games Workshop events, but often not done as well, is leading questions, leading seminars. So what it tends to happen is whoever's on the panel talks a little bit about something, and then a load of questions get asked. And obviously that means it could be completely variable. But what you could do better is, in your given hour, spend 40 minutes on conversation. You have a compere who's leading it, who's asking questions. So you're doing a Q&A with Alan Bly and John French. And maybe people could contribute questions in advance that could be vetted, or someone else from the organisation could just be prompting them to have discussions about really cool things, whether that's stuff in the setting or the mechanics or whatever it might be. And then you have 20 minutes of audience questions at the end rather than the other way around. And that then you get more value out of that because it's prepared and you know you've got deep content.
Yeah, I was just going to say pre-prepared questions. Definitely, because it weights it in favour of information that's relevant to the most people.
Exactly.
Which is key, because, how many times can you ask about the 2nd and 11th Legion or what have you, absolutely.
I mean, if anyone's ever been to Q&As with authors and that sort of thing out and about, last year I went to Gollancz Fest. So Gollancz, a science fiction publisher, loads of really cool authors, and every single seminar had someone from Gollancz or another author who was leading it, who knew how to prompt and push people into certain directions if things were going a bit off topic. And it meant that every single seminar had a focus, and they were talked about this in advance. So it was so-and-so in conversation with someone else talking about logistics and science fiction, for example. I mean, it was interesting. You knew what you were going to get. And it meant that there was so much to learn in it because you got insight from someone who did this for a living. So it might be slightly different because it's not necessarily going to be authors. But it could be about sculpting miniatures, and you could have someone from Forge World sitting down with Mark Bedford or some of the other sculptors and prompting them and getting in-depth discussions about how that works. People would be interested in that, I'm sure. So, there are options, there are ways you can do it, and there are ways that Games Workshop collectively can learn from other industries who put on these sort of seminars and these sort of shows.
Definitely.
And who do it for a living.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think certainly this year, more than any other year, if you're going for the information, it's just not worth it. GW had the pictures on the community website an hour or so after they were shown, if that. Yeah. So, rather than getting my blurry pictures as we run round, you're getting a fully painted version, clearly that you can blow up on your computer and have a detailed look at. So that information was being disseminated, put out. Excuse me. There's talk of the videos going up at some point this week from some of the seminars as well, which is good again because, we're not there. You don't pay that money just to hear the seminars ahead of other people. No. And if you are, then, well, fair play, but I think you're missing out. It was interesting how many Neil spoke in the first part about a number of painters there just for Golden Demon and nothing else.
That's all right. That's interesting.
Yeah, which I feel is, if those people are going there and literally spending the weekend trying to win a Golden Demon and nothing, the Golden Demon painters already have this discussion about whether they should have multiple Golden Demons, multiple sword winners, all that kind of jazz. Does then taking tickets away from people who want to go and attend the seminars, and giving them to people who are just there to win, enter their model and hang out in the bar. That's a tough thing that GW have to look at if they're set on this Golden Demon. They could have a painting competition there potentially without it being a Golden Demon.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
That's something that they have to decide amongst themselves. I think they're going to sell out this event. I think that we've shown that, particularly this year. And going forwards, I don't see that fading for a while.
No.
So, interesting times.
Indeed.
But I think that's about covered it, unless there's anything specific you want to bring up.
No, I don't think so. I think it was, it's worth going, enjoyable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm hoping that the Black Library Weekender is, if it's set up similar to this with a bit more kind of structure to the seminars, then it'll be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And there's so much cool stuff that Black Library are talking about in advance that maybe there's greater scope for that.
Yeah, and there's slightly less of the desire to have to get the new stuff ahead of everyone else because you can generally print enough of everything to make it all right. So, whereas the Heresy Weekender next year, I can see the Friday night being almost as busy as the Saturday morning was the previous years. So I think they're going to have similar problems with the queuing just on the Friday night.
Yeah, maybe.
Which in itself is an alleviation. However, maybe they need to just really think ahead on that one as to exactly how they're going to do that.
Yeah.
But, a lot of little things that they can improve on, and they have improved on last year without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh, absolutely.
But there's always room for further improvement and to be kind of ahead of the game. And, as a paying customer, that's what you expect as well. Because it's not a cheap weekend, as we say. And the big thing being, and I hope they do with the Black Library Weekender, limiting the amount of tickets you can purchase per person.
Yeah, it's absolutely the right thing to do.
It is, it's one of those hard things. I did the video. I did a video with Neil. I think I spoke about it with Neil. We did a video walking around the hotel, and it took me like 2 minutes.
Yeah,
it's a very small venue, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And if you move it to a big venue, you will lose a lot of the feeling of the event.
Yeah, I mean that's what Warhammer Fest's for.
Absolutely, yeah. So, if they want to run more of those kind of things, then great. But the weekenders are very different.
They are. I think I'd almost say if they don't already have someone, they could really benefit from someone with genuine experience of ticketing. And I sort of talk about it's sort of what I do, out of work for a ticketing company, and I have done for a while. And you just think, letting people buy 6 tickets per person or whatever it is, when you've got a really small number of tickets, it's sort of common sense to not do that. But that's my bread and butter. So hopefully they'll learn from these sort of things, maybe get involved, maybe talk to people from other industries and see how other people put on events, talk to people who put on commercial conferences and that sort of thing. You can learn from people who aren't in games making and science fiction, and I think they probably should.
I think it's fair to say that GW over the last year have changed their attitude on a lot of that stuff.
Hugely so. Yeah.
So it's looking good. It's looking healthy. You're should say that you've done a brilliant interview. You've released the first part with Laurie Golding.
So we talked about that a little while ago, Laurie and I, and it's taken me a little while to get it transcribed and get it written up. Laurie was super, super cool, really nice guy, very honest. I'm very grateful for him to chat about this sort of stuff. I was really keen to get a little bit behind the scenes, behind the curtain, about some of the changes that have been going on in Black Library. If anyone's interested in that sort of thing, have a look. So look at Track of Words, Google it, come find me on Facebook or Twitter. Like you said, the first part of the interview is up. There is a second part coming where we talk about some slightly different things. Laurie's obviously been heavily involved. He's got a really good insight. And I think it's just interesting to see what went on, but also the sense of positivity that's coming out about the cool stuff we're going to be seeing. Really feels like Black Library, as a microcosm of Games Workshop, is is really growing and really on the right track. And I think that, like I said, that reflects in the rest of the business.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Well, that's another long segment. And I think it's time for us to go away and do our evening things before bed.
That sounds like a plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much again, Michael. And we'll, as I say, we'll be doing the Primarchs, first 2 Primarchs books next episode.
Yep, look forward to it.
Brilliant. Cheers. So that was our Heresy Weekender episode. We have omitted one thing, and that thing is the Golden Demon. So
yes,
we mentioned that there was a Golden Demon going on, and I think you mentioned a few times that you've been painting for it.
Yes.
So remind us, what did you paint for the Golden Demon?
Right, so I entered 3 entries, and 3 brand new entries, which was a bit of a push. Usually I'm a bit of a put an old entry in and do one new one sort of guy. But this time I did Perturabo as my single entry. I did a Leviathan Dreadnought for vehicle, and I did a Magos and Thalax on a bit of a scenic base for open. So I had 3 entries out of the 5 categories available. So I felt quite good with myself for that.
And we were sat down, so we got to the point where we found out that all 3 had placed.
Yes, it was a lot of Sunday hanging around looking at the judges and watching them judge everything one by one.
That changes things, doesn't it?
Well, no, but you get a good feel then of actually how they're going through their decisions. So it's quite useful in a way.
It's not useful. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I know you can't do anything about it, but it's useful to watch if you ever want to just work out how they do the judging.
Okay. So, and I asked you, where did you think the winner was coming from? You said the vehicle category.
Yes, that was my view.
So who were the finalists? Leviathan, your Leviathan.
Yes.
Martin
Richard Gray.
Richard Gray, sorry, wrong one there.
Richard Gray with his big warhound Titan.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, stamping on a tree. Yeah.
Yeah, stamping on a tree and having a wee. And then there was another Leviathan Dreadnoughts.
Cool. Yeah, a popular choice, Leviathan.
Yes.
Nice big areas, I suppose.
There was a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, I didn't actually get to... I forgot to go and look round on the first day, and then second day they were judging, so I couldn't see them. So I'm kind of relying on finding posts with lots of pictures, which I need to look up, or seeing them in the magazine, something like that at some point. Is there a website which has got... So do you know of any blogs where someone's taken a lot of photos of the Golden Demon entries?
Best one is the Golden Demon website.
Yeah, well, no, I mean for just all the entrants from that.
I haven't seen anyone that's taken lots of pictures.
Okay.
The only place you can do is if you search Instagram.
Yeah.
Most of the painters are on there and they've put their stuff up.
Yeah, I've seen a few.
That's the only other way, really, to look at and find out.
I've seen a few. So, we start with Perturabo. You won. Which colour for Perturabo?
Gold for Perturabo.
Gold for Perturabo. Leviathan Dreadnought.
Silver for Leviathan Dreadnought.
Poor showing.
Yeah, that was. Yeah,
and then the Magos.
Magos was gold as well and open.
And gold as well. So I'm sitting there with 2 golds and a silver trophy, holding them onto you.
I threw the first one at you, which was a bit of a.
And you were, and by this point, you were resigned then, weren't you?
Yeah, I was pretty resigned, and I was pretty sort of like, I didn't get vehicle. This is going to be, this is going to go to vehicle. A bit like you did last year.
Yeah.
I was very confident that it was going to go straight to vehicle.
Yeah, sure. And I must admit, I can't remember if I said it to you, but from an unexperienced eye, I always felt your Perturabo was better than your Leviathan. And
I think maybe that was, and that could quite be true. I think for me, I'd spent so long doing Perturabo, I was sick to the sight of him.
Yeah, I think that does affect. That Warhound was very, very well painted. We've discussed this off the show. There's absolutely no doubt about the skill level that's gone into that. There were certain aspects of it that I wasn't a fan of, which certainly would affect me if I was judging it.
Yeah, sure.
This is a guy who can't paint particularly well. talking about that. I'm trying to be. I can be critical about it. There was aspects of it where I felt that some of the colour choices weren't necessarily great, but I mean it was fantastically done. The freehand on it was stunning.
Absolutely stunning.
Stunning. It almost looked too good.
Yeah.
Almost looked.
Yeah. Although one of the criticisms he always gets, or gets people put on his Instagram, is everyone always says, "Oh, those decals are really, really good."
Yeah.
And he goes, "No, I painted those." No, they're definitely decals. He goes, "No, I painted those."
It almost makes it almost makes the model look too realistic, too real world.
Yes,
And I find that can be done with some painters, and I'm like, it's a toy in a high fantasy setting, because it's not particularly sci-fi 40k in that respect. So when you get too gritty, I sometimes get drawn out of that. But yeah, it was fantastic. And then in the end, we had the announcement for the winner, and the winner was
Perturabo.
Indeed.
For the Slayer sword.
Indeed. So your first Slayer sword.
My first Slayer sword. And I think you probably would say I was quite excited when they announced it.
Yeah, I was tempted to pull your trousers down as you got up, but I thought I better not. I better not. Yeah, so, I mean, it's not a real Slayer sword because you haven't won it at Games Day, but, it's...
Oh, that's a bit harsh.
It's, the classic Slayer sword is a bit more important.
No, because I think that's the first thing that people start saying. So, it's not really a proper Slayer sword.
I mean, it is. At the end of the day, as we've said before, you beat the people that are there. You beat that Warhound. You beat the other entries. And
I beat Martin Waller, who got silver in squad. He was a Slayer sword winner. Richard Gray's won 2 Slayer swords. One of those was a classic Slayer sword. Matt Cain, there was a lot of good talent there.
So again, it's you didn't just beat a load of chumps to get this. It wasn't me and my mates from the club entering. There were previous very accomplished painters and winners of previous awards as well. So really well done, mate.
I was extremely happy, but I did notice something afterwards that made me think I could have saved myself a lot of heartache. Which was the award ceremony started at 4:30, I think it was, wasn't it? 4:30?
Something like that, yeah.
At 4:31, they sent an email out announcing the Slayer sword.
Oh, wow.
So if I'd looked at my phone at the start of the ceremony, I would have known that I'd won.
Yeah, but how gutted would you be to find out you lost that way, though?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would have been worse to find out you hadn't won that way.
Just a little thing. And it's a very small thing. This happens with wargaming a lot. Happens with a lot of things. Slayer, when you're into the final of Golden Demon, you've won an award, correct?
Yes.
You're getting a trophy, right? So
yes.
you have to go to the stage to pick up that trophy.
Yes.
Don't congregate at the back of the room where there's a 30.
Everyone always does it.
I know. They do it for gaming trophies as well. But people applaud, and then the applause runs out before you've got to the end of the room, and then it's just a bit of awkward silence. It's like, at least, there was so much room in that building that they could have been halfway down and still been all by themselves. Bless them. But whereas you were just sat right at the front going, give me a sword.
I was very keen.
Yeah, very keen. Bless you.
Very, very keen.
So does this change the way you then look at the classic?
It does in a way, because I think for me, before I'd won the sword, I looked at the classic and thought, well, I'll go and I'll enter something and see how I go. And now I'm like, no, I'm hungry for it now. I really want to enter something, and I want it to be good, and I want to prove that I'm not I didn't win a sword on a soft event, and that's all I'm good at, sort of thing. So it's definitely spurred me on to do bigger and better things.
Can you enter Perturabo again?
Not that I know of, no.
No, there's the actual rules on that. Okay.
I don't think there is, but I know that they would probably go,
yeah, it's not winning
again.
Entered. Yeah. They'll be like, no, he's not winning. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, it was really cool, and then it just started appearing all over my Facebook feed, which was a bit annoying.
Well, I was quite excited about that.
I've heard
put photos up about it straight away.
I've heard that you commented on every time it was posted.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. just
the first time I was like, oh look, they've posted it, so I just put, oh that looks good, and then it came up again, and I thought, I just started I was loving the limelight.
Bless. Okay, so that means now that our competition to win a model and have it painted by you and entered into Golden Demon has now become by a Slayer Sword winner.
Yes,
which,
indeed, yeah.
Puts a little bit more emphasis on it, and
it does.
A little bit of the guys, the events team were kind enough to let me shout out the draw before the quiz, and I think we got a bit more recognition this last week because of the Slayer Sword and the photo being everywhere. And we got a grand total of £1,414, which is a fantastic amount. And that goes from some people giving £1, some people giving £100. Thank you all. Absolutely brilliant, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm really happy with that amount because that's more than in my head I wanted to raise, if you know what I mean. That was more than my
I think we were both kind of going, if we can get a grand, that'd be awesome.
Yes.
And to push it on beyond that is really cool. And there's people from all kinds of different places who've put their money in as well. So we are going to move to the draw. So it's a number between 1 and 1,414. And Neil, give me the number.
The number is 472.
Okay, I've got to scroll up for that. Oh, 472. Well. Jeff O'Hara. There we go. Jeff O'Hara. I will email Jeff and tell him he has won. Excellent. So that is the first prize. That is, he will be able to choose a model, a character series model or equivalent, and Neil's going to have to paint it how he wants it.
Exactly.
In enamels.
Yeah, Humbrol, please.
Brilliant. Let me just live on air. I'm just going to write winner by his name, so I know who to give it to. Brilliant stuff. And we also had a second prize. So this is the summoning model, which Neil will also paint up and send to you. So let's have another number then, please. Jeff now is ineligible to win, so if we get one of his numbers, we'll have to put that back.
Okay, and the second winner is number 1,145.
That's good. That's definitely not his. 1,145 is Daniel Nuttall. So I will second prize winner. I will contact him and we can crack on with that. So Neil can get the models in nice and early and start his painting.
Yes, indeed.
Because Warhammer Fest will soon be upon us, and you'll want as much time as possible, I feel.
I will do, yes. I will do.
Yeah, make the most of these nights full of sleep for now, because you'll be back on it.
I will be, yes. I have to find out what the main prize is and get cracking.
So, do you know, are you going to appear in White Dwarf, or is it going to be on the Warhammer Community, or...?
Yes, I'm going to be on... I'll have a double page spread, I suppose it was, something in White Dwarf, where they'll be featuring Perturabo, and I had to do like an interview after picking up the sword, and just sort of sit down and go through a few bits and pieces, and I've got to send a photo in of me, etc., all that jazz. So I've got that to come, which will be quite cool, and Winners' Day as well, which will be around July. So, lots of things now in the pipeline, lots of things happening. So
do you get 3 tickets to Winners' Day?
No. Well, the thing is, you only get the 1 ticket, but they did say the last time I spoke to Liz, who organises it all, she said she was going to, this year they were going to do everyone gets a +1 who goes. Ooh. But I sent her the email today saying, look, are we, I'm definitely coming, etc. Are you still doing the +1? Because it didn't mention it in the winner's letter, but she did say that's what they were looking to do for this year's Winners' Day.
Oh, yeah, well, that'd be good if they do.
Yeah, I think it would be quite nice to sort of open it up to maybe a few different people as well, so you don't get the same group of people there.
Yeah, because you're all quite boring, aren't you?
We are boring.
We'll talk about painting.
Talk about the same stuff all the time.
That's it. Excellent stuff. Okie dokie. So, yeah, keep an eye out for that, and I'm sure Neil will tell you all about it anyway when it happens. So if you are following Neil on Instagram, at Neil Paints, or Neil Paints on Instagram, then he will He will tell you all about it. You're still on the Twitters. You're using that. Did I see you get a bit more active in Facebook, or was that someone else I was thinking of?
Well, I did. I've had a lot of people friend me on Facebook, and
Right.
I think maybe because I was commenting on my own Slayer Sword winning posts, that maybe I was getting a few more people friend me. But I still haven't done a great deal on Facebook. Still just mainly Twitter and Instagram.
Okay, and of course the show Facebook, lots of chat going on there, which is always good. I say I've got the snippets of information from the weekend as I put them up. And we've got that walk around video of the hotel. So if you are interested and you didn't see that live, then it just gives you an idea of the venue. As I say, it's a very short video, really. And it's just me looking particularly ugly in front of the camera, which is always good. But you can follow what I'm doing on at Child of Fang and more Instagramming. I've been doing more Instagramming, and hopefully there'll be more Heresy Instagramming soon.
There's been a lot of Age of Sigmar Instagramming so far.
There has. Found someone who's done my colour scheme in Age of Sigmar, one person, and he's a much better painter than me. Always disappointing. But I'll put some work in progresses of my 30k as I'm moseying along. I'm devouring the Inferno book at the moment. It's quite interesting because it's only one fight, really, because the whole War for Prospero is essentially one fight. So there's the build-up, there's why didn't these things happen, and then there's a fight, and that's pretty much it, which is quite cool. So there's only one Titan involved. It's a bit weird, but it is very cool. And there's some names in there for Forge World to expand their line with things like Custodes flyers and things like that. So some interesting stuff about what we might see in the future, potentially, which will be cool. But I'm reading that, and I will post some stuff up. If you've got any feedback, if you've got anything you want to ask, we're always collecting questions, things like that. Then you can contact myself at greg@theimperialtruth.com.
And you can get hold of me at neil@theimperialtruth.com.
For those who are wondering about London Heresy and the other events, I am going to announce the dates for my second event of the year soon. Just need to do a little bit more bits and pieces before I do that. And I'm working on my FAQ document for, not just for London Heresy, but potentially going forwards after being told that it might not happen through Forge World, depending on what goes on with the new edition for 40k. So it won't be as in-depth maybe as some of the other podcasts are asking questions. Mine might have a little bit of almost a common sense approach, as it were, rather than looking for the exact answer. Just slightly different ways of doing things. Some people want to know the definite answer. I'm quite happy to go with, well, this makes sense, so we're going to do this, and not even question it too much. But I'm working on that as well. So hopefully we'll get that up soon. And now that event's, now we've wrapped up the painting competition, we will be doing something next show, I'm sure. We're going to run the Evelina charity up until the event in May. What I'm thinking of doing in May is at least having collection buckets out, for odd change and stuff as well, to do that at events. And then I think it's quite a good time. That's quite a good time to end it, is after that event, and then move on to the next charity. And we can swing around and come back to them, but I like the idea of supporting more than one. So,
yeah, definitely.
So we will look at doing that. But yeah, so this episode's been going on a while, so I think we'll leave it there, and we'll come back. Thanks, Neil, and I know you enjoyed talking about winning stuff.
Yeah, I'm just going to go and polish my Slayer sword now.
That is a euphemism, everybody. Where is your Slayer sword? That's a good question. Is it hanging over the mantelpiece?
At the moment, it's just sat in a box because my house is still not ready. I'm still waiting for bits and pieces to be finished, but it will be going on the wall somewhere in my study.
In the study, okay.
Inside there, yeah.
Out the way. Excellent. Yeah. Brilliant stuff. Okay, we'll leave that there. You have been listening to The Imperial Truth.